Mr. Dean? Mr. Sharp? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Faulkner? Mr. Gould? Mr. Tanner? Mr. Bender?
Here.
Mr. Groby? Mr. Canulet? Mr. Belisario?
Here.
Ms. O'Brien? Here. Mr. Stefanzik?
Here.
Mr. Ortiz?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here. Thank you. Okay, the first item on the agenda, we have a certificate of recognition to Ms. Amy Purvis for being named Southeast Louisiana University's Female Freshman of the Year. They actually name a male and a female. When Amy stands up, you'll see she's a beautiful young lady. And just before I come down with Ms. Brister to give the award, actually, Amy grew up in my neighborhood. You lived in the neighborhood at the same time, Chris. Oh, Steve, excuse me, Steve. Steve, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Back to Amy. Amy made in her freshman year the dean's list and the president's list. She is a DSA ambassador, which is a leadership group that helps students get more involved at SLU. She's a member of the Tri Sigma sorority and serves as secretary of their honor council and music chairperson, and she was their sweetheart this year. And she spends the rest of her time volunteering at the OLL Youth Group, which is a very worthwhile cause. Her parents are here, Mr. and Mrs. Tim Purvis. Y'all want to stand for a minute? And I'll ask Ms. Brister to join me and we'll make the presentation.
I know you're proud parents. Yeah, we are. That's correct.
Hey, Amy, how you doing, girl? Doing all right, huh?
Doing good, thank you.
Ms. Brister.
Nice to
And Rosalind Purvis.
meet you.
So, Amy, this says the St. Tammany Parish Government Certificate of Recognition. Our St. Tammany Parish Government desires to recognize Amy Purvis for being named Southeastern Louisiana University's Freshman of the Year. Your dedication to your education and community is greatly appreciated, and signed today by Ms. Pat Brister, Parish President, and myself as Parish Council Chairman. So, Amy, congratulations.
Thank
You
so
deserve
much.
it.
Thank
You want to have a picture with Ms. Brister and Mom and Dad? Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Amy. Good to see you. Thank you. Great job. All right, presentation number 2 is a certificate of recognition to St. Tammany Parish School Board Principals of the Year, Mr. Gould. Mr. Belisario.
Just briefly, we would like all the principals to come down, but I just want to give their names out so everybody knows, and I'll do it by lower elementary, middle school, and high school. The lower elementary, Mary Jane Smith, would you please stand? She was the Principal of the Year. She was a regional winner and a state finalist. At the middle school, there was Susan Patan. She's the principal at Lake Harbor Middle. And then Dr. Michael Peterson over here to the right. He's the principal of North Shore High School. Okay, let's come up front. We'll take it in sequence. Okay. Hi, my name's Gene Balisaro. I'm proud to give this certificate of recognition to Mary Jane Smith, the principal at Honey Island Elementary School. I've known her for quite a year. I've actually worked on some drainage stuff with her and the principal of the next school. As I said, she's the regional winner and state finalist for the year 2012 through 2013. Mary Jane? Congratulations.
Well, it's rewarding every day to be able to go to work and it not be work. We have a great time at Honey Island. We would love for you to come and visit us at any time, and you'll have a great meal and see a lot of engagement going on with our boys and girls, and I'm just proud to be a part of such an awesome public school system. Thank you.
Ms. Patan? Ms. Patan was principal for both of my boys, and I can't tell you how tight a ship she runs and how good an operation it is. Let me tell you, we need to be very proud of these people, and I know firsthand the job this lady does, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. I do appreciate it. And I do want to say that I am proud to represent the administrators in St. Tammany Parish and for the wonderful school system that we do have. So thanks for bringing us here and recognizing us.
And last but not least, Dr. Michael Peterson, North Shore High School, Principal of the Year for my end.
Thank you, Mr. Bider. I'd just like to say that I'm so appreciative to have the opportunity to work in such a wonderful parish that has been so well run. You gentlemen have credit, and ladies have credit here for that. But our school system has been just so, I guess, excellent as far as running our educational system, and I'm just a proud recipient as an administrator of such a group and a community as ours. So whatever you're doing to value that sense of community, please keep doing it, because it makes all the difference in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We need to thank everybody in the school board system. They do a wonderful job for us in this parish.
All right, council members, what we'd like to do right now, we have two items off the floor. The first one is an important national issue and a very important issue to us here in St. Tammany in our area, which is the making progress on the National Flood Insurance Program and making it right for our people. So we want to move that up. And item 2, I'd like to move up at the same time because it's for introduction only.
No, we're going to actually,
Oh.
I'm going to have different action on it because of being of critical nature.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the council to suspend the rules and adopt based on the timeliness of this as it goes on, and I'll explain.
Excuse me?
Right.
No, that's what I
Right.
want to do.
I'm going to move to open the agenda.
Items
Off the floor.
Okay, motion by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Thompson. Open items off the floor, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. I'm going to read a part of the resolution, not the resolution in its entirety on number 1, and then go to our parish president, Ms. Brister. This resolution requests the National Association of Counties, and even though we're called parishes in Louisiana, we're a member of the National Association of Counties, all of our sister states, to adopt a resolution at its 2013 annual convention in July to memorialize the United States Congress to preclude, amend, or delay the increase in premium fees for the National Flood Insurance Program. The resolution requesting the National Association of Counties through its Justice and Public Safety Committee to adopt a resolution at its 2013 annual convention in July to ask the United States Congress to take such actions as are necessary and, as mentioned before, to preclude, amend, or delay the increase in premium fees for the National Flood Insurance Program as provided by the Biggert Waters Flood Insurance Act. Our parish president has been doing some very outstanding work over the last couple of months on our behalf, and I'll go to Ms. Brister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just as you said, this has been coming toward us since 2012. The Biggert Waters Act of 2012 was passed at that time. I don't think anyone recognized the significance of what it would mean to our residents here on the Gulf Coast and across the country, really, until we started looking at what the flood insurance rates would have to be raised to in the next 5 years. The NFIP, or National Flood Insurance Plan, has been a subsidized plan by the federal government for many, many years. The plan is well in debt, so the bill was passed to make it more sustainable and get it more in line with where it is budgeted. Which is a good thing. We want it to be sustainable. We want to be able to have flood insurance for many years. But there were so many unintended consequences in this bill when it started going forward. One of the things that it required is for FEMA to redraw the flood maps. That's happening at the same time. So it may put someone that followed all the rules, built their house to the right flood level 5 years ago, 3 years ago, but the new flood maps may put them in a floodplain that would cause their insurance rates to skyrocket, and I mean tremendously so. So many of the parish presidents got together along with GNO Inc. under their leadership and went to D.C. and started talking about it. And we were the first group to go up there to talk about how important this is and how much damage it could do. But while we were there, the calls started pouring in from around the country, because it's not just the Gulf Coast. It's the East Coast, the West Coast, all along riverines throughout the country. We all are affected by flood, and the insurance is used by all of those people. So we have drawn some attention to it. This resolution tonight is part of a plan that has been put together to draw national associations, national groups into it, into the discussion. We have talked with the National Home Builders Association, the American Bankers Association, because it does affect everyone, because in some instances the insurance will go up so high people will not be able to afford their mortgage. So it's that serious, and I appreciate so much you're doing this off the floor in emergency. But I will tell you there's some good news. That's all the bad news right now. But last night at about 10 o'clock, my iPad started binging and my phone started ringing, and the House of Representatives passed an amendment last night at 10:30 that is the first step to put a hold on this. So our delegation in D.C. have been working side by side, both sides of the aisle, to make this happen. Steve Scalise spoke on this issue. It is Congressman Bill Cassidy's amendment. It passed with a 2-to-1 margin. So the message is out around the country that how serious this is. So it's the first step. Now we have several opportunities in the Senate to get an amendment over there, and what it will do is delay this for several years so we can start looking at it realistically. We know it needs to be sustainable. We know we have to have flood insurance for the long term, but this is not a good plan. As a matter of fact, Congresswoman Maxine Waters from California wrote the bill. It's named after her, and she testified last night that she did not intend these consequences, and she would like it revisited also. So we're on the right track, and I appreciate all the support you council members have given us, and just keep watching the paper. I hope we'll get more news in the next few days, but I think we have taken that first giant step. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Madam President, let me just ask a qualifying question. I think I know the answer. You said a home built 3-5 years ago, but in essence, any home built that was built at the permitted regulations at the time it was built.
Yes, that is correct. I spoke of 3 to 5 years ago because at that,
Yeah.
it's that new that someone may have put a lot of money into their home, raising it to the elevation that's what FEMA said you must do. That was
Right.
the flood level at that time.
Right.
So they did everything by the rules, followed every code, and not by their own making. They could very well lose their home if they don't have the capabilities of raising the house or paying those unbelievably high insurance rates. And it has just ballooned into this national issue now. And unfortunately, anyone that has a mortgage has to have flood insurance. So it's
Yeah.
not a choice in many, many cases. So
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 2 is ordinance to authorize the parish president to accept the act. Excuse me? Oh, I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Stefanski. A motion to adopt, seconded by Mr. Dean. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. Okay, on item 2, ordinance to authorize the parish president to accept the act of dedication and donation of Meadowbrook Boulevard and to incorporate Meadowbrook Boulevard into the parish maintenance system. Mr. Gould.
Mr. Chairman, because of the construction already being underway on Highway 190 over in front of Kmart and across the Chinchuba Creek is already underway, the state has committed to construct an outbound turn lane coming off of Meadowbrook Boulevard, but they have said repeatedly that they would not do it on private property. What this ordinance that I'm going to ask to introduce and then suspend the rules and adopt does is authorize the parish president to accept the donation of the property so we can move forward with the state and get this thing done. My fear is if we do not move forward now and as rapidly as possible, the state may back away.
Okay.
We have a commitment. I know Tim Burns has been talking to them. I know they verified it with us. And this is an opportunity to put a very, very needed piece of infrastructure in place. So
Okay.
I'm going to move to introduce.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Gould to introduce, seconded by Mr. Thompson. We don't need to vote.
Okay. And I'm going to move to suspend the rules and adopt.
Motion to suspend the rules and adopt. Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Falconer. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you.
Mr. Gould.
Thank you. I thank the council.
Okay, moving to the consent calendar. The items that I have which we need to pull under ordinance for introduction, item 13, and we have item 24. Under resolutions, we have item 2, and that's all. So do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar? Who's the motion by? Oh, yes, sir. Does anyone else have any resolution they'd like to pull, Mr. Gould? Okay. Mr. Tanner? Okay, Mr. Groby? Chris? Gene?
I have one, ordinance for introduction, number 12, ordinance calendar number 501, oh, excuse me. There's one that deals with my zoning case.
Now, we already pulled 13,
Okay,
and that has your name on it.
yes,
Is that the one?
yes.
Okay. Ms. Maureen? Okay. Steve? Richie? Mr. Smith? Okay. So we have a motion by, excuse me, audience. Anybody want to pull anything? Miss Leslie, do you want to pull it? Okay. I mean, Steve is sharp tonight, and I'm telling you, I'm not going to get a failing grade. Okay. All right, Steve, can we make that motion there? You make it. All right. Motion by Mr. Stefancic to adopt as amended, seconded by Mr. Artigue. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay. I'm going to go slightly out of turn here and go to Ms. Pat, and that is on the resolutions. Item 2, Resolution CS number C-3732, resolution to approve the appointment of the Director of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism Department for the remainder of the 2012-2015 Parish President's term of office. Ms. Brister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all have seen over the number of years, we have started accumulating quite an array of public facilities, like the Fish and Pier, the Trace, Camp Salmon, and many, many other recreation areas. And meeting with the council, we have kind of come to the decision that we really kind of need an umbrella now. We need to get all of this together so we can market those facilities much better, so more people know how great St. Tammany really is, and we want more tourists to come over and see that. So with their help, we have created a department of no, we already had the department. We have created a title of Director of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. So it is my great honor tonight to introduce Wenzel Conroy, Ms. Conroy, who is our new Culture, Recreation, and Tourism Director at the pleasure of the council tonight. She will be doing just as I mentioned to you, making sure everybody knows about all these wonderful facilities, and maybe coming up with a program that we might start getting a little revenue to help pay for all this stuff that we're doing out there. So that's her charge, and she comes with a very solid background. She's been over in St. Tammany for I don't know how many years. 23 years. So please, council, I will ask for your approval for that title of director tonight, and I think you are going to be very happy with what you see. I know I've known Wenzel for some time, and she's really a great person for this job.
Wonderful.
So,
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Gould. Excuse me? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, before y'all vote, did you mean by pool to discuss this, or to pick one that?
Ma'am, come on forward if you would
I
like.
think this is on a different issue, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I have spoken with her, so it
All right.
probably would be fine for you to go ahead with this one.
Okay.
This is something
All right,
additional.
ma'am, let me just ask you real quick.
Right.
You're not referring to our vote on naming Ms. Conroy as our Director of
No,
Culture and Tourism?
No, I just wasn't sure about what y'all meant by pool. Did you mean by, is it something we wanted to discuss?
Okay, let me
That's
take
what
the
I
vote.
didn't- I'm
That's
sorry.
okay, that's all right, look.
trying to
lem-
learn.
Hey, you're doing fine. Let me, just stay right there. Let me take the vote first, and then we'll, don't worry about it, okay? We'll be fine. All right, so, everyone please vote.
Mr. Smith? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Wonderful. Ms. Conroy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Conroy, welcome to our She will, we have her desk ready. She will be starting Monday. So we have
Monday.
her work cut out for her. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, ma'am, come on up here and we'll get you taken care of.
By pulling a resolution or ordinance, did
Mm-hmm.
you mean that was one that we wanted to discuss, or?
Yes, that we
Okay.
would discuss.
Well,
Now,
can I pull
sure.
one? Have y'all already voted?
No, go ahead.
Okay, resolution C-3759.
C 370,
That's on page 6.
which number is it?
On page 6, 29.
What's on page?
On page 6, yeah. On page 6, number 29. It's a resolution.
Okay, now, let me ask our legal counsel. We've already voted on this, Mr. Hand.
I don't think you have.
And of course, I did ask the audience if anyone wanted to pull.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest we go back and reconsider the motion to,
Second.
to
That's fine.
do it. So since I voted in favor of it, I'll reconsider the motion too.
Okay, motion to reconsider resolution number 29.
No,
See it?
the
Excuse me?
motion to accept the consent calendar. Then let her pull it off, and then we'll adopt the consent calendar again.
Man, I gotta tell you.
Okay. I'll keep it straight. My motion is to,
Yeah, say your motion.
my motion is to reconsider the consent calendar.
Motion to
adopt
reconsider the
consent
adoption
calendar.
of the consent calendar,
Right.
seconded by Mr. Canulet. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay.
Now she can ask to pull it.
Ma'am, would you like to pull item 29?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Now we re-vote on the motion for the consent calendar.
Yeah, so now we're going to adopt the consent calendar with item 29 removed. Motion by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Mr. Chairman, before you go forward, could I just take one moment?
Yes, ma'am.
After you count your vote, it's nothing about this
Yeah.
one. As all of you probably know, today was the last day of our session in Baton Rouge, our legislative session, and I got an email that it is over. We had several capital outlay projects that we had applied for. They all stayed intact so far. We have to wait 20 days to make sure they are, but I wanted to take just a minute, and I hope the council will join me in thanking our delegation. They have worked tirelessly this year and have communicated with us throughout the entire session and worked with us, and I just wanted to say a special thank you to them for everything they did for us during the session, particularly Jack Donahue, who is finance chairman, and he really did pull some things out for us that were very difficult. So I just wanted to say a public thank you to all of them, all of our
Wonderful.
delegation.
Absolutely. Thank you for the update.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay, ma'am, it's your turn.
I'll take it. I'm Carol Fox from Pearl River,
Okay.
and I'm speaking for the members of North Shore 912 Group and the People LLC. And our request is that you, as parish council members, would please research Resolution C 3759 before voting on it. I have some pages that I'd like to pass out to y'all, if someone would do that for me. Yes, thank you. As they pass out these papers, I would like for you all to examine before deciding to authorize the application of this grant. We believe most of you are fiscally conservative with our tax dollars, and we, as your constituents, have several questions regarding this grant. And I have a list of questions that you'll see on your paper. Would I have time to read those, or?
Let's see, ma'am. Okay, you have, Steve, did you start the clock? Okay. We'll give you about 4 more minutes. How's
Okay.
that?
Yeah, I think that'll cover it. Thank you. We want to ask whose land they're planning to taking, if any, for this environmental corridor. What projects will they be doing? How much money does the parish have to come up with or match for this grant? And for this section, the parish of St. Tammany hereby resolves that Parish President Patricia Brister is authorized to submit the Environmental Corridor Planning Grant application to the Division of Administration, Office of Community Development for funding under the CDBG Program for Disaster Recovery, and to take all other necessary actions in order to implement these projects. Define exactly what it is that they're authorizing her to do, and what does this mean by all other necessary actions? Does that include taking land? Are they using this as a mitigation bank, and if so, who is going to profit from it? These areas are very expensive to maintain, and who will pay for the long-term maintenance? If these questions don't apply, I'd like to know that as well. These areas result in a large mosquito population. Since St. Tammany Parish already has one of the highest rates of West Nile virus in the state, how do they plan to combat the problem? We believe in preserving the environment, but we are aware that most planning grants fall under Agenda 21, ICLEI, American Planning Association, and nonprofits. And we want to know if you are aware of the Republican National Committee resolution against Agenda 21. And then what are the government stipulations in using this grant money? And on your papers, you have a copy of the United Nations Agenda 21, Chapter 10 describes sort of what I think is being requested here. And then I have also the GOP resolution against Agenda 21. So we believe these questions should be discussed and thought out before accepting any grant money from the government in these stressful times. And I thank you for your time. And I didn't give my contact information, but if you want to give us a call or anything, you know, with these questions or answers, I'd like, my
Okay.
number is it
Mike?
okay to give it over
Can you
the
go
mic
Don
or
either
personally?
way? President Brewster, do you want to speak on
Thank
this,
you.
one of your directors?
I want to start, and then I am
Okay.
going to turn it over to Gina, who
Okay.
is in charge. And this is just simply the first step of our applying for a grant for disaster recovery.
Right.
It means no more than that, then I can sign papers to apply for that. But I'm going to turn it over to Gina Campo, who is in charge of our grants and does this every day and can
Yeah.
answer any questions that you all might have.
Okay.
Thank you, President Brister. I did get a
Thank
copy
you.
of the questions, and again, let me reiterate that this is a planning grant, which means that the purpose of it is to actually look at the area that surrounds the Tammany Trace, which of course the parish already owns. There's no plan at this time to take any property. We will be looking at areas that are low and that are possibly in the floodplain, that are already green and need to be held in conservation and perpetuity, and possibly other recreational uses that they may be good for and recommended for. But overall, what we'll be doing is, like I said, is looking at this entire area along the trace and around the trace, looking for areas that flood and that we want to conserve. And we don't want people building in there. We want to conserve it. We want to make sure that there isn't any damage to those areas. And if we can utilize them for recreation, tourism, extensions of the trace, any other type of opportunities like that, then that's what we're going to plan out. And there will be a citizen participation aspect to this grant. So at this time, we are starting at the beginning. Of course, the trace is already there, but we're starting at the beginning as far as the plan to go ahead and look at this whole area and look for opportunities for conservation and enhancement. And so there aren't any projects that are already put out there or any plans to take any property or anything to that effect. There will be notices for a public hearing once whoever is going to prepare the plan gets further along.
Okay.
And I hope that answers your questions.
And one other question I think is, you know, I think you questioned our taking land. That is a whole different legal process that we would go through. This is just to look at the area and plan for it, just as Gina just said. So there'll be plenty of time if we did anything, once we get the grant.
So there are no private ownerships on this area? Okay.
Well,
We don't know.
We don't know.
Exactly what land that we're actually looking at yet. So, of course, you know, that is something that we would have to map out, look at the property ownership, et cetera. Most of the property that we would be looking at in terms of putting in conservation probably can't be developed very easily anyway. So because of the wetlands and because of the, the habitat that's there. So we're just looking at basically preserving that.
Okay. Will there be any government stipulations as to, what happens if we do receive the money and use it? Because I know a lot of times they're...
The grant itself puts in very strenuous stipulations. You may use this money to do this, and it's a planning grant. We can only use it for planning, is what, but the grant will spell out very explicitly what we can use it for.
Will we be able to get a copy of the grant and see
There is-
firsthand?
If we receive it.
There is a scope of work for the grant, what we're going to do with it. And actually, I got the message right before
Yeah,
this
I was
tonight. So I
waiting
did
for
call
that.
you, and I left you my number. So feel free to call me tomorrow, and
Okay,
we can get
good.
you a copy of that. That's what was applied to the grantor agency, and you can see exactly what we are planning to do.
Okay.
with
But
our
there
plan.
will be a public hearing on all of this?
There will be a public hearing, like I said, as we get further along in the process, so, to get input from the public, because that is part of this particular granting agency's requirements.
Okay, good. All right, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you,
your
Ms.
time.
Fox. Thank y'all. Okay, Mr. Tanner.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. One little question. I know Ms. Brister said that this is a disaster recovery grant, and then when we started talking about it, we found out it's not a disaster recovery grant, it's something else. So my question is are we pressing a time schedule to adopt this resolution?
Well, let me just say that it is disaster recovery funds that are coming from the Office of Community Development with the state, and there are criteria that include the impact of Katrina Rita on the parish and to areas in our floodplain and sensitive areas. So that was the reason why we qualified for the planning grant. We are in the process of getting the authority to execute the cooperative endeavor agreement so we can access the funds. So that is what it is not an emergency situation, but we cannot move forward with the project and acceptance of the funds until the parish president's authorized to sign that document.
And if I said emergency funds, that's just the pot of money that it comes from, that comes through.
Disaster, you said. My other question is, are any of these questions that are brought up by this lady have any significance toward things that the public or us should know before we vote on this resolution?
I would just say that a lot of the questions really can't be answered at this time because we're at the beginning of a plan. So, like I said, we would be moving forward with that plan and including input from any stakeholders, including the public and, of course, the council and various agencies, et cetera. So you would be getting notice of what it is that we were looking at as we move forward with the plan and getting the opportunity to input.
We couldn't go any further than the planning.
Correct.
Yeah, if I could add, and I think my colleagues that have been on the council through prior to this term, in the last term, if you'll recall, we had a similar grant come up, and a similar kind of debate went on. It was a United Nations grant. This was before President Brister took office, and it was, again, a planning. It was a planning issue, okay? And the public had some concerns, but it would have to come back for a vote to go further than the planning stage. So we can get it, but it can't be forced upon us without a vote of the council. Am I correct, Ms. Pat?
That is correct.
Okay,
It will come up several more times.
okay.
Mr. Bender.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think one of the things that some people don't understand is how this works. And I'll give you an example, that probably everybody from the east side would understand. Back in around 2000, when we got a CBDG grant to do a planning thing such as this. And then one of the spots that they located was behind, back along Bayou Liberty where people, where they were getting ready to build a bunch of condos and build a bunch of other stuff back there. And we were able to look at that and know that that was all wetlands and that they were going to have to put up, like, to really just build the stuff, they were going to have to put up about 70 feet of dirt or something like that in there just to get the land up to a level that could sustain it. And we ended up, through the grant, being able to look at that and then go forward through the Trust for Public Land to get them to help us purchase that land. And we didn't take it away from anybody. We purchased it at the price that the people had agreed to, and then we put that into the parish, and over a period of time, we paid it off. Today, that piece of land now floods when Bayou Liberty floods, and then it goes down whenever Bayou Liberty goes down, and we're not driving Victoria Park and places like that, we're not flooding them out. And I think that's the kind of thing we're looking at doing here, and we need to do more of that in the parish and certain places. And I think if we're looking at places like that, we need to get the grant to do the planning. And I think that's the piece that has to start it all. So I wanted you to be aware that that's at least one case where it made a big difference along Bayou Liberty.
You're absolutely correct, and I recall that, and at the time did not fully understand the way you just explained it. So thank you for the explanation, Steve. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, just to echo and piggyback on some of the comments and observation that Mr. Stefancic made as we look at this under the purview of the Community Development Block Grant Program through the state of Louisiana. As we understand certain census tracts in our community that are historically underutilized and underserved in a lot of areas, this would definitely help us to try and make a positive impact on some of those areas that we would like to see some improvements, some enhancements made in our community. So we think this would definitely be an asset to our program in trying to bring this parish up to speed in some of those areas.
Okay. Mr. Smith, would you like to make the motion? Motion by Mr. Smith to adopt resolution CS number C-3759, seconded by Mr. Canulette. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
And briefly, before we move to appeals, I really think it's important. Excuse me? More. Number one. It's a rough night, Richard. Rough night for me. I'm having a rough night.
You skipped over 13 and 24 on ordinances for introduction.
Yeah. Terry's having a lot of fun with me right now over here, man. Steve, where am I at? Item 13? Gotcha. Item 13, ordinance calendar number 5016, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 197.58 acres from A1, A2, and A4 to A1, A2, A4, and MHO Ward 8, District 9. Mr. Belisario.
Make a motion to postpone.
Motion by Mr. Belisario to postpone, seconded by Mr. Canulette. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance, item 24 is ordinance calendar number 5027, ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances regarding Communications District Number 1 Board of Commissioners. Mr. Stefancic.
We basically have a substitute ordinance, which Mr. Hand has written for us, that changed what was on the agenda. And so I'm going to ask that we amend the ordinance, but there's a second amendment that I want to put in there, and that is under the appointments to the Board of Commissioners, item number 3, which used to read, one member appointed by the Parish Council representing the Parish Sheriff's Office. We want to change that to the wording, one member appointed by the Parish Council nominated by the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff. And that's consistent with the other ones that we have there for the municipal police and the fire chiefs. So with the new ordinance that's being written, I want to move to reintroduce I want to amend the ordinance first and then move to reintroduce it. So I move to amend based on what Mr. Hand has written for us with the amendment I just made.
I'll second.
You can't amend unless you have an ordinance up for adoption.
No,
What, this is,
this
Excuse
is
me.
introduction.
Go ahead, Mr. Tanner.
You cannot amend.
Turn your light on,
You cannot amend an ordinance unless the ordinance is up for adoption. I mean,
no, it's not true.
that is true.
No.
This is not the school board, Richard.
please. Richard?
I'm sorry.
Richard, I'm with you on this one, buddy.
I'm terrible tonight. I don't know what's wrong.
All right. Steve, I finally got somebody near me, buddy, that can take you on.
He's done it. I can see that.
All right, would the word substitute,
Yes.
Richard, would you agree with that? Substitute ordinance? Okay.
It's a
Mr.
new,
Tanner-
yeah, it's basically a new ordinance.
Mr. Tanner agrees. So you want to introduce a
That's consistent with the school board too, probably.
Oh, jeez. A substitute ordinance with the amendments so stated,
Right,
that Mr. Hand has,
and mine.
and
I
yours.
just said.
In mine.
Mr. Hand, we have two ordinances, two amendments, or three? Two. One by Mr. Belisario, one by Mr. Stefanczyk.
Yes.
And therefore, this will be a substitute ordinance for introduction.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Falcon.
Yes.
Mr. Stefanczyk, when he made his substitute motion, or presented his ordinance, substitute ordinance, he mentioned that he was changing the language in line 3 to read parish council nominated by the parish sheriff's office to be consistent with the other items, and I don't see where that's consistent, because it says that in number 4, it doesn't say nominated by, nor does it say that in number 5.
But it says, one member appointed by the parish council representing the municipal police chief, who shall be
Oh, I see it. Okay,
nominated by
thank you.
vote of
I got
such
it.
police chief, and the
Great.
same thing from the fire departments.
Got it.
That way, all three bodies have the
Of
words nominated.
Got
Yes.
it. Great. Thank you.
Okay, so all I need is a motion and a second.
You need,
You
no,
got
you
it.
need to adopt the amendment and then the substitute motion, and then we reintroduce. We have not voted on the substitute
I'm not
motion.
adopting an amendment because
We're
Mr.
adopting-
Tanner has advised me that that would be
adopting-
incorrect.
Well, he's wrong. but
We've
that's okay.
introduced the
We're
substitute.
adopting the substitute motion. Remember,
We-
I'm the parliamentarian here.
We are, don't tell me a substitute amendment. We're adopting a substitute ordinance.
Yes.
Excuse me, we are introducing a
introducing.
substitute ordinance.
Yes.
Is that correct, Mr. Stefanczyk?
No. No.
Terry, is-
No. We have to adopt the substitute motion first and then reintroduce.
Terry agrees.
We're going to,
Vote on the substitute ordinance.
with the two from you and Jean.
Yeah, that is correct.
That's correct.
We'll
Yes.
get you through this meeting.
Please vote.
Tanner's holding off his vote. Now I move to introduce.
Motion introduced, only need a second. Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Thank you.
Mr. Bender?
Yes, sir, Mr. Tanner.
Just point of information. The Robert's Rules of Order that I stipulate
Yes, sir.
does not come from the school board, but comes from Major Henry M. Roberts, who was the author of Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes, sir. And as stated earlier, Mr. Tanner, I side with you, sir. Excuse me, Steve.
You want to make him the parliamentarian?
No. He hasn't asked.
I'm just going to keep Mr. Fondick straight.
Thank you.
What's his doing?
All right, under resolutions, number 1 is Resolution CS number C-3731, resolution requesting the Parish Code Enforcement Unit perform a code violation sweep to address issues which currently exist on Highway 59 between I-12 and the town limits of Abita Springs. Mr. Gould.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this resolution is to ask code enforcement, or actually, we would be asking them to do a code sweep along Highway 59. If you drive up and down the corridor leading into Abita Springs, it's not very well maintained. There are numerous violations that are out there. We need to make an effort. If Abita Springs is one of the jewels of this parish, a lot of people go there for tourism, we need to make the effort to clean that corridor and that entrance up and try to get everybody to take a little bit more pride than what we're seeing along that corridor. It's not intended to go in and strong-arm people, but it is intended to get their attention and work with them to bring their properties into conformance with the code. This is something that Louis Fitzmaurice talked to me about when he was mayor of Abita Springs, and a couple of weeks ago, Mayor Lemon and I spoke about this, and they have a concurrent resolution attached to ours. So I'm going to ask that we move for approval on this resolution.
I'll second.
Excuse me, motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by, who's that, Mr. Belisario? Please vote.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Excuse
just,
me, Ms.
no, that's
Bristol.
all right, I just want to add, I thank you for the resolution. We agree with you 100%, and we appreciate when you get calls from your constituents, back us up, because they'll be calling you next.
Absolutely.
So
Oh, no,
just tell them
I
what we're
realize
doing
it's
and-
going to create some issues.
We want to do it, but they'll be calling you, and we want you to say you agree with them if you do, if you vote on it, that
Sure.
we want it clean, we'd appreciate their help.
Yeah, we definitely need to work on it. And I'll tell you, we're in the process of getting one of the larger offenders out there cleaned up right now.
Good.
He was out there with equipment, moving his big tanks
Yep.
and doing the things that we need to do. So,
I appreciate it, it'll help us.
yes,
So,
it does.
Thank you.
Okay. We voted. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
All right, moving to appeals. All right, we have appeal number 1 and number 5. Excuse me. No, we have a technical change made to appeal 1 and 5. I'm going to move up number 3 because it appears that this will be withdrawn. So appeal number 3 is Alan Vest appealing the zoning commission denial on May 7, 2013 to rezone 33,365 square feet located south of US Highway 190 west of South Pontchartrain Drive, being 25638 Highway 190 from A1A Suburban District to HC1 Highway Commercial District, Ward 4, District 7. Mr. Grovey. Okay, now, you have documents that the appellant wants to have this withdrawn.
They were reserved by the clerk this afternoon or yesterday morning.
Okay. All right, so, motion to concur. By Mr. Groby, seconded by, who? Mr. Stefancic, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Mr. Groby, need a motion on a resolution?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Groby, seconded by Mr. Stefancic. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay, I'm also, counsel, going to move up appeal number 5 because I've been told that each side only needs approximately 1 minute, and apparently they've reached some agreement or whatever. So item 5 is Charles Flocka and Rick Casanova appealing the zoning commission approval on May 7, 2013 to rezone 4.913 acres located east of east of LA Highway 437, south of Bruning Road from A1A Suburban District and HC1 Highway Commercial District to HC2 Highway Commercial District, Ward 2, District 2. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Bender. My name's Jeff Shane. I'm with the Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington. I represent Mr. Paul Dorsey and Dorsey Development, who are the petitioners and developers in this case. I spoke with the two appellants before coming to the microphone first this evening, because technically these appeals are brought by Mr. Charles Flocka and also by Mr. Rick Casanova, in connection with the case. The parties have worked together since the time of the zoning commission hearing, at which time the zoning commission made a unanimous recommendation that this property be rezoned. However, we knew that there was a need to place some deed restrictions on the property. We have worked our way through that process, resulting in the last request of the residents in the area being accepted by my client this afternoon. I'd like to thank Mr. Flocka, Mr. Casanova, and all the residents in the Lee Road community for working with Mr. Dorsey, as this project will bring a Dollar General market store to their neighborhood, which is an expanded Dollar General store product, which is really includes what I guess we will call a neighborhood supermarket component as well, something that the Lee Road community does not have and hopefully looks forward to having. I know my client looks forward to developing the property and letting Dollar General have an even greater presence. I'd like to also, on behalf of Mr. Dorsey and Dollar General, thank Councilman Sharp, who has attended not only the zoning commission meeting, but also at least one meeting that was held with the community here at the council chamber. I think he has been attentive to the needs of the developer, but equally importantly, to the request and concerns of his constituents. We're very pleased to have a resolution of this matter this evening, and after these gentlemen withdraw their appeal, we would ask that you concur with the recommendation of the zoning commission in light of the deed restriction that I am going to provide a copy and ask that it be placed in the record this evening.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Flocka and Mr. Casanova.
I'm Charles Flocka. I just want to say that we are in fact in agreement with the amendment as offered. I'm sorry, with the deed restriction as offered and amended, and we appreciate Mr. Dorsey's assistance in getting this thing worked out to our satisfaction.
Wonderful. Mr. Casanova?
Yes, it's compromise is sometimes when everybody's equally unhappy. So we didn't get everything we wanted, and I apologize to our friends, neighbors, relatives, but we're satisfied with the compromise that we were able to work at.
Very good. Okay, so with that, Mr. Sharp.
Move to concur with the zoning recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Sharp to concur, seconded by Mr. Gould. Please vote.
That includes the deed restriction, right?
Yes.
With the deed restriction.
Yes.
Yes.
Including the deed restriction.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Mr. Sharp, I just need a motion on introduction of an ordinance.
Move to introduce.
Seconded by Mr. Thompson. Thank you. Okay, moving back to appeal number 1, and that is Robert Boland appealing the zoning commission denial on February 5th, 2013 to rezone 1.01 acres located north of Highway 1088, east of Viola Street from NC4 Neighborhood Commercial District to HC2 Highway Commercial District, Ward 4, District 5. Mr. Boland.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we begin, I think most of the people in the audience here are here for the 1088 one. Normally, we allow 5 minutes with 2 minutes rebuttal. My suggestion at the start is that we set some other time limit other than the 5 minutes.
Mr. Boland,
What
what type of time do you believe that you need? Do you need more than 5 and 2? If so, let me know.
I'm just going to accept the compromise that Mr. Gould suggested last council meeting.
Okay.
That's C1.
All right. Excuse me one second now. Who would be a spokesperson for Highway 1088? That's Highway 1088. Okay. Okay, ma'am, you want to come forward? Yeah, I just have a simple question about time.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, Mr. Boland would have to amend his request, and then we would have a hearing based on the amended request with all these people speaking as well as he speaking.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So everybody understands what is occurring.
So knowing that Mr. Boland is planning on amending his request, okay, do you have an idea, without repeating the same thing, in other words, from 5 different people, but different points made to the council, how many minutes do you feel you all need for presentation? And then we usually have 5 minutes for presentation, 2 minutes for rebuttal.
I would think we need about 10 or 15 minutes for presentation.
For presentation?
I'll speak as quickly as I can. For C-
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Wait.
This is against the denial. I'm speaking against.
No, we know that. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Groby.
Because there was not a large crowd here last time, I would like Mr. Boland to tell everyone here what this compromise is. They don't know. It's, of course, they should have been here, we understand that, but before they stand up here, please come up here and remind us all what this compromise is.
Okay, on a subject of minutes, Mr. Gould, and this is in your district, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I know you and Mr. Groby have been working on it. I think a good time might be to go 8 minutes of regular time and 3 minutes of rebuttal. Does that sound good to you, Mr. Groby? Okay, so 8 minutes of presentation time, 3 minutes of rebuttal, and Mr. Boland will have the same if he needs it, okay? And Mr. Boland, you would come first. State your name, please.
Robert Boland, Covington, Louisiana. The last time I was here at the council meeting, I was trying to get the council to override the denial of the zoning board on a piece of property that I bought some 15 some odd years ago. It was zoned highway commercial in 1986. 1986. And I wanted, and in parish-wide rezoning in '09, they downgraded it to highway, to NC1, which cuts the value significantly. And I simply was asking the council and the zoning board to change it back to what it was historically when I bought it, way before neighborhoods were even out there. and that's all I was asking. The, Mr. Gould suggested that I amend it instead of HC2 to amend it to HC1, and that's what I'm saying that I would agree with and like to do now.
Okay.
Is that a, Jake, is that an explanation?
Okay, so for everyone in the audience, okay, and Mr. Gould and Mr. Groby, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Boland is proposing that he would be willing to change his appeal from moving from NC4 neighborhood commercial to HC2 highway commercial district, to change that to HC1. Okay? Does everyone from 1088, or the leaders at least from 1088, understand what Mr. Boland is now proposing?
The request is for HC1 rather than HC2.
Right.
As a suggestion by Councilman Gould.
That was part of the discussions last week. We
Yes.
have a number of people in this audience that have decided they wanted to get involved and speak on this issue. And I believe that my position is not prejudiced at this point. I want to hear the testimony of everybody, and we'll move forward from there.
Thank you, Mr. Gould.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I could, just for everybody's sake that doesn't know what HC1 is, or what
Yes.
NC4 or NC what, could we get our expert over there, Mr. Fontenot? HC1 is 20,000 square feet. We're looking at a 40-something thousand square foot piece of property. But could you tell the difference, tell the audience what he's asking for now? He's asking for HC1 as opposed to what he...
HC2.
Yes. And as opposed to this other compromise NC, whatever it was, NC.
It was originally NC4, neighborhood commercial.
Okay.
No, I mean, that's
NC4.
what it is
So
now.
could you just run down for the audience what that means?
NC4 allows smaller land uses. In the NC4 allows a maximum building size of 12,500 square feet plus some additional storage space. It allows dance studios, educational facilities, learning center type facilities, not schools, churches, religious facilities, child care centers, nurseries. The proposal for HC2, I'm sorry, for HC1 would increase the minimum building size, or maximum building size to 20,000 square feet, and it would allow automotive parts stores, business colleges, department stores, physical health and health establishments, and I'm just hitting a few of the types of uses, drugstores, food stores, restaurants and restaurants with lounges, and specialty food processing. So it's a more intense district with larger buildings.
Okay, first speaker. For everyone, this side, the 1088 signs, you have 8 minutes for a presentation, 3 minutes for a rebuttal. So if Mr. Boland comes up to give his rebuttal to your presentation, you would have 3 minutes to rebut of your own, okay? Yes, sir. And Mr. Stefan? Mr. Belisario will be keeping the time. Please state your name, sir.
Good evening. My name is Charles Johnfro Jr., and I live at 780 Sweet Bay Drive, Mandeville, in the Woodland subdivision. I'm also the president of the Woodland Subdivision
Hold on for
Property
a
Owners
second.
Association.
Stop, please. This thing's not starting.
Won't be used against you, sir.
Okay. Okay, we're going. Okay.
And I would like to thank Mr. Gould and Mr. Groby for all they've done for my subdivision in the areas around my subdivision. Mr. Gould has been a champion for our subdivision, and I should have reflected that in my letter last evening. And in my haste, I did not edit the form letter that we sent, and I do apologize to him for that. And just to let y'all know that they do work for us a lot. On the reason I'm here before you tonight, in the early part of the year, I was told that the St. Tammany Board had voted against this. We thought the issue was dead. The communication that it was going to be appealed did not come back to us, and we missed and dropped the ball with the communication. But once the word got out, we gathered our troops, made the discussions between the board. We voted on a formal resolution opposing any change to it. The Planning and Zoning Board, the council passed, and the present council have all realized that this is to be an overwhelmingly residential area and to have it zoned for use appropriately. The designation given and the change in the past was well thought out, and the impact on quality of life for the residents to take 1088 to work and school was reflected in that change. Our subdivisions has names that project country nature, names like Quail Creek, The Woodlands, Forest Brook, Grand Terre. They do not call out to the commercial element of other places. Highway 1088 was once somewhat dead-end road for all accounts. We felt we were secluded and protected from the commercial development with so much residential and schools in the area. That's why we picked this area. We looked and considered property in all three subdivisions. It was an area we could live among the 1088 and be happy with. My subdivision, our board of directors, and my family opposed the change in zoning, and it is our belief that any zoning change would lessen the property value and adversely affect the area as it is now. Many reasons on both sides may have good points why we should or shouldn't let this happen, and the data has been studied by most of the people in here tonight. My bit is how I see it is this way. There are 1,257 homes in the three main subdivisions in that area. Just using an average $300,000 range in price, that's a total investment that we've all made of $377 million in this parish. You know, that's on the line here. And when you ask who's got the bigger chips in the pot, we think we do. Any adverse change in that zoning could lessen the appeal of why we all moved here in the first place, which could lead to our property values going downward. Just a 10% reduction in that value would cost the parish many a tax dollars each year. Thank you for bearing with me, and just in case you don't hear it enough, all of you are doing a great job. I love this parish because of the work you guys do every day. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Foreman, and I've been asked by my POA board to speak on behalf of the 458 households in Quail Creek, which border Highway 1088 and Salt and is directly across the street from the parcel of land located at Highway 1088 in Viola. This property is literally in our backyards. We have no green space. We have no buffer zone whatsoever. We're separated only by a two-lane highway. Like the gentleman said, many of us came here for the quiet, the safety, the beauty, and the tranquility of this area, of course, before the interchange opened. For the majority of us, our home is the single most important investment we will ever make, and it's not just an investment in the house or the land that it sits upon, but an investment on our family's future and quality of life, all of which is jeopardized if you vote to reverse the Zoning Commission's denial, which would set a bad precedent for any future zoning change requests and compound all of the following problems. I have to apologize because I didn't know he was going to accept HC1, so my little things here, I didn't have time to scratch out the ones that are in HC2. For any zoning change above the current NC4, just a few of the range of possible commercial establishments include a farmer's market, restaurant with lounge, dry cleaners, unattended 24-hour self-serve coin laundries, convention and conference centers, RV parks, department stores, funeral homes, public parking lots and garages, car wash, specialty food processing, 24-hour convenience stores with gas, 24-hour liquor stores, veterinary clinics with outdoor kennels, outdoor storage yards, hotels, motels, outdoor retail sales and storage yards, and too many more to mention, with up to 40,000 square feet buildings and 250-foot towers allowed. Would you want this in your backyards? St. Tammany Parish's annual water quality report for 2012 confirms that these commercial establishments could contaminate our water supply with inorganic contaminants, synthetic and volatile organic chemical contaminants, and radioactive contaminants, which are the result of wastewater discharge, oil and gas products, industrial processes, and can also come from gas stations. Imagine the wastewater discharge from laundromats, RV parks, car washes, specialty food processing, and hotels, or the chemicals from dry cleanings and funeral homes, and the detrimental impact to our drainage resulting in increased flooding. There are two major parish water sources located in our area: Briarwood Terrace Number 1 at Highway 1088 and Salt Street Well. Do you want to risk contaminating these water sources and possibly our air quality as well? These commercial establishments will deteriorate our already insufficient infrastructure with increased traffic on Highway 1088. We have already experienced an increase in traffic since the opening of the I-12 interchange and the Lakeshore High School. The state police has reported 20 crashes in 2011, 35 crashes in 2012, and 16 crashes through May of this year, which puts us in line for an even higher 2013 total. The POAs of Forest Brook, Quail Creek, and the Woodlands have been working diligently to get proper road improvements and infrastructure in place to support just the traffic increase. We came to you back in about January or February of 2012, spoke before the council, got promises, but no results. Councilman Stefanik confirmed that he had discussed our lighting requests with the RPC to update a TIP for 2012 and would be working with the engineering department and the legal counsel regarding funding maintenance, but no results yet. We held a meeting at the Quail Creek Clubhouse with some of you and our elected state officials, but no results yet. You can't build a home with one exit, but somebody permitted the developer of Forest Brooks to create a subdivision of 433 homes with one exit. How safe is that? I spoke to a lady here, a resident from Forest Brooks earlier. She said there was a 4-car accident right outside there. She's concerned we don't have a middle lane, we don't have any shoulders. How can an emergency vehicle get through to take care of something like that? Not to mention that it keeps everybody inside their neighborhood. They can't even get out if that one entrance and exit is compounded with a 4-car accident. Councilman Groby has been out there monitoring the situation during the early morning commute and witnessed the problems firsthand. He's been doing his best to work with us to help us navigate the red tape of government. Parish versus state, whose authority, whose lighting district, whose permitting process. Then they change the permitting process. It's exhausting, and still we have no results. Traffic piles up at the intersection of Highway 1088 and Viola to pass the Quail Creek entrances. Drivers are speeding through our subdivision to avoid the pileup, running stop signs and endangering our children. An increase in the zoning classification at that intersection would turn a bad dream into a nightmare. It's a very scary sitting in your car waiting for someone to turn into a subdivision or into one of our businesses along Highway 1088 with cars barreling down at you at speeds of 60 to 65 miles an hour. Even though the speed limit starts at 55 and reduces to 45, they don't slow down. Or trying to cross a lane of speeding traffic to exit. We were actually told that getting the improvements might hinge on the number of accidents that accumulated. Can you imagine that? Safety should be an integral part of any project from the beginning, not as an afterthought. There has been a turn lane down here at the end of this dead-end street, Coop Drive, and now y'all have a brand-new traffic light at Highway 59 and Coop Drive. Yet thousands who live along 1088 have been waiting 2 years for our road improvements. How many accidents or fatalities does it take to qualify for the street lighting, the turn lanes, the merge lanes, the road shoulders, and the traffic controls that we so desperately need? Many of these commercial operations allowed will increase crime due to an influx of strangers in environs that are known for loitering, drug dealing, drunken brawls, and robbery. Would you want that sort of activity in close proximity to your children? Many of us cannot understand how you could protect the interest of one person's speculative land investment over the interest of thousands of your constituents and their families that live along the Highway 1088 corridor and the surrounding areas. We are working hard to maintain our property values, provide for the safety of our families, and continue to enjoy a high quality of life in this well-established residential corridor. We ask you all to please uphold the integrity of the New Directions 2025 land use plan, the green print model, citizen input at the numerous public meetings which were held, endless hours of work by consultants, the Planning Department, the Zoning Commission, and the Parish Council, which after 2 years of hard work, and I am sure a lot of taxpayer monies, culminated with the Unified Development Code becoming law. Please respect all of the expertise, research, and foresight of the Zoning Commission, who has previously denied Mr. Boland's request for a zoning change, and please deny this appeal. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have our voices heard.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Stefanczyk, do they have any of their 8 minutes left? Ate that 8 minutes up, huh? Okay, Mr. Boland, you still have presentation time left. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll apologize about all of this. First of all, I want to make sure that everybody understands I'm not going to sell drugs. I'm not going to put a funeral home there that's been circulating around all these, or anything like that. I have no plans for the property, except that I bought it almost 15 years ago as an investment. It's kind of like I equate it to kind of like the flood insurance. Hey, you have built a house for 15 years, and all of a sudden they come in and want to change the flood maps, and you can't afford your house, the property's dropped. It's kind of the same thing with me. That's what's happened to me. I have no plans with the property. There's a moratorium out there. None. I have no plans. I just...
Okay, whoa. No.
I want to put nothing there, and I just apologize about everybody being so upset about it, because I just want it back to what it was, so my investment will somewhat be returned to me. That's it. But we'll go through the process, compromise that Mr. Gould suggested, and then again, I just sorry that everybody's so upset about something. I'm just trying to get it changed back to what it was originally.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. You have time remaining. Okay, the no 1088 side has excuse me, Mr. Boland.
Let me just add, let's see, the property size, something else about that's unclear, that hadn't been discussed. I met with Helen Lambert, and you guys got the email. The max building size on that property is 10,000 square feet, maximum. You can't put more than a 10,000 square foot building maximum on an acre piece of property. Won't fit. That's it. Can't do it. I did speak with Richard Roth. He spoke in front of the council zoning and said that he was not opposed to it forever, wanted to see what the state was going to do about the intersection, where they were going to put a turnaround, a light, or whatever, and wanted to wait for that. Hey, they got a moratorium out there, a building moratorium. Can't do anything anyway with it. So we're waiting. I don't have any plans anyway. Keep the moratorium on there. And there are plenty of buffers if you had to develop that in C4, C1, C2. There's all buffers and stuff that we have to adhere to if I ever decide to develop it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. Okay, the no 1088 side has 3 minutes left for rebuttal. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm John Ammerman. I live at 209 Governor's Court in Grand Terre subdivision. And I'm the immediate past president of the Grand Terre Civic Association. And there's nobody in there that's in favor of the zoning change. Several years ago, this parish went through, and this council went through some comprehensive rezoning that brought forward historical issues of the parish. It allowed for growth. It was orchestrated by people far more intelligent than me. And, the banker in me feels for the gentleman with the investment, but there are plenty of investments and ways to develop that property to still make money with it. Stay within the approved zoning. And that's what the citizens of Grand Terre would like to say. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No 1088 has about 2 minutes left.
Well, I'll be very fast then. Richard Rawl, Quail Creek. I'd like to say that Mr. Bolin is correct. 10,000 square feet is a building size. However, that's a footprint size. They can build up. You can, at HC2 or HC1, I think 20,000 square feet it is, you can build up. 10,000 square foot footprint going up. So you could build at least a 2-story building right there under HC1. Also, as it was entered into the minutes earlier, there has been an increase year over year in accidents on Highway 1088. Just tonight, on the way over here, or I'm sorry, on May 8th, there was an accident right there at that intersection. Tonight, on my way over here, there were tire tread marks through the ditch outside of Quail Creek. This traffic problem is getting worse and could be compounded by these zoning changes. Finally, my last point, if he gets HC2, which he wants to go back to from where he was before, there is nothing that this council or zoning commission could legitimately offer any other property owner along 1088 to prevent them from requesting the same zoning designation. He doesn't want to build, they will. If he may sell his property, get his money back for it, which is what he wants. As a business person, I can understand that. He gets his money back, he walks away. Every other property on that highway gets the higher designation. We're left behind. So I ask you to please vote no on any zoning changes on Highway 1088. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, sir. You
They have
time.
about 50 seconds
Okay,
left.
I just want to make one
wait,
point.
wait,
They have about 50 seconds, and then he can get his rebuttal.
Excuse me 1 second. Steve, how much time does Mr. Bolin have left?
He has 6 minutes left.
All
But
right.
they have about 50 seconds on their side.
Okay. Does anyone, okay, ma'am, Mr. Bolin, I'm going to hold you off for just a minute, okay? Ma'am, you have 50 seconds.
Okay, I'll be quick. Before you change the zoning, I would really want you to think that the street has to be improved because we only have ditches on each side. Any emergency that we have, there is no way for emergency vehicles, ambulances, police, fire department to go. There is no place for us to move to the side and let them go so that if there is a fire and there is an emergency going, there is no way for anybody to go through. And that is a concern that Forest Brook has, as well as Quail Creek. So I would really appreciate you thinking before you change the zoning, because the increase in traffic will also create a problem with that.
Thank you, ma'am, and y'all's time has expired. Okay, Mr. Bolin.
Well, again, I just want to clarify one thing about my meeting with Helen at Lambert, which Mr. Rawl, might need to clarify that for him. The largest building you can build is 10,000 square feet, not the footprint, the entire building. You have to get at least 28 parking spaces for every 10,000 square feet. That means you may have to shrink your building to be able to allow for your parking. 10,000 square feet max, you can't go up. You can't go up. So that's, I wanted to clarify that, and I appreciate that, Richard. That's all I wanted to clarify.
Okay, so Mr. Bolin, their time is up, and you relinquish the rest of your time at this point.
I will say that any traffic issues out there now, we all know the traffic's down. We all know that it doesn't meet the minimum standards for a traffic light. We do know that there is I guess the state's doing a study out there for the highway. But any accidents out there now don't have anything to do with that 1088 property. That is something else. That property is vacant. Only thing that's done to it is the trash is picked up, which is thrown there all the time, and the yard, and it's mowed. That's it. I haven't caused any problems out there. That property hasn't caused any problems out there. So I guess there's something needs to be done under the road. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, back to the council. Mr. Gould.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the residents from 1088 that sent the emails. I tried to answer them, but they were coming in faster than I could answer. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate you getting involved and speaking up for your community. Sydney, let me ask you a question. Back when the comprehensive rezoning was being done, I noticed that that property was zoned NC4, and I was surprised because I didn't even know that it was commercial to begin with, and then you told me that I think it was C2. And where did y'all come to the determination of coming to a decision that it would be better suited as NC4?
The predominance of residential uses in the area, 2-lane state highway, I mean, all the issues that were addressed tonight were taken into account. If you look at the zoning map as it developed through the comprehensive rezoning, you have highway commercial up near the interstate and neighborhood commercial as we came down, and you had the smaller lots. To zone that size piece of property for large-scale buildings is counterintuitive. You have the smaller, it was granted some kind of commercial because it had historic commercial, and it could serve a purpose. But at the scale that was permitted under the C2 highway commercial, which was 20,000 square feet by right, unlimited through conditional use, it would have been, that was, in our opinion, an overzoning of the property. The sizes that we're talking about, 10, 12,000 square feet. At that time, it was 10,000 square feet in NC4. If you remember, about a year ago, we bumped up the NC4 to 12,000 with the mezzanine.
Right.
Mezzanine storage. And so we, that's within the scale to allow neighborhood commercial, neighborhood services for the residential uses in the area, more compatible with the residential uses in the area, while recognizing that at some point in the past, it had been rezoned to commercial.
Right, and this property could be combined with the adjacent property that has a similar zoning as well, is that correct?
Yeah, there is at least, it's similar size piece of property. I don't know if it's 1 or 2 parcels immediately adjacent to it that it also has the NC zoning, and the rest of it around it is residential, has historically been residentially zoned.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that this was a thoughtful process to take it down, and that it was no mistake. Thank you. All right. In light of the new testimony, in light of Mr. Fontenot's clarification and information that he's provided, the comments that I've received and listened to, I'm going to move to concur with the denial.
Okay, motion by Mr. Gould to concur with the denial, and Mr. Groby, I know you've been working on this, so Mr. Belisario, if you don't mind, I'll have Mr. Groby second it, okay?
Please silence your phone.
Okay. Mr. Tanner?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, and I'm going to support Mr. Gould's motion to deny. But, it kind of upsets me for you to stand up out there and say that one entrance to a subdivision down the road has anything to do with this particular piece of property. The traffic on 1088 doesn't have anything to do with this piece of property. The lighting at the interstate doesn't have anything to do with this piece of property. The road issues for 1088, no sidewalks, no sides and open ditches and what have you, that's not going to change one way or the other. So, give us a little bit of credit for knowing, why a piece of property wouldn't be zoned NC4 or C1 or C2. Don't try to trick us by saying, you know, that the water quality is going to go bad because if they've got a service station there. We know that's not true, and you know that's not true, so why tell us that?
Okay. No, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me. Just so I can let the public know, okay? It's back to the council now, so please refrain. Mr. Stefancic, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly comment. I met with Jake Groby and Forest Brook and all them back when we were trying to look at what we could do with lighting. We have not given up on that project, and I know when the lady said nothing has been done about it, I told her when we were putting it into RPC, and Pat Brister and I are there, and Reed Falconer is there, we put it in, we've got it in the long-range plan. I told you at the time it'd be 5 years, and we were in 2012, so I told you it'd be in 2017 based on what we're doing. We've tried to move that up, and we have moved it up a couple of years, but it's still not going to happen tomorrow. And just to give you an idea of how long it takes, we've been working on Highway 11 and Highway 434, Highway 11 and North Shore Boulevard for 5 years, and we're finally getting it moved up to where next year it's going to be implemented. That's how long it takes to go through the state and the federal government to get the funds to do those kind of things. So we're still working, and I think we will continue to work to get the lighting along, especially along the interstate portion of that done. And we're still working with DOTD to try and meet their requirements on the stuff below there. I know Jake had a meeting a couple weeks ago on that. So I just wanted you to be aware that we haven't forgotten it. And nothing gets done as fast as we want it to get done. It certainly doesn't get done as fast as you want it done. But we are still working on it, and we will gradually move that up the line and get it through the TIP program, the Transportation Improvement Program, and get it to where we'll finally get the funding for it. So that's what we're trying to do, and it just doesn't happen overnight. Now, because the comments were made, and especially addressed the fact that I had addressed that, it's not in my district. I went over there to help, and would continue to try and do that, and will continue to try and help. And I know President Brister and Mr. Falconer, who sits on the Regional Planning Commission, will work with us to help get that moved up as rapidly as possible. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I just add on to what Mr. Stefancic said?
Yes, sir.
We have been, as Mr. Groby and as Mr. Stefancic, Mr. Falconer, we have been to Baton Rouge several times. We have met with the director, Sherry LaBaugh, talking about this issue. So please don't think that we have forgotten about it. We're not trying. It is a state highway. We're working every angle that we know how to work. So it's not ever out of our mind. We know that there's an issue out there, and we'll continue to work on it.
Ma'am.
Only because you made
No,
an accusation.
wait 1 second, okay? Mr. Grovey.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify for the audience. About a week and a half ago, I had called a meeting with both electrical company suppliers, WST and Cleco, as well as Mr. Hernandez, Mr. Rault. Another couple of council members were invited, trying to get through this myriad and a really bad permit process DOTD has before us. The process that's slowing everybody down, I have the money, or we have the money in our lighting district to put the lights up as we've amended the lighting district. They will not allow us to do so until we meet their exact specifications and permitting process. They've changed that twice on us, and what really is still chafing me badly is that they were invited to this meeting so that we could get clarity on the permitting process. They refused, and they did not show up. Matter of fact, I believe we received the email at 7:45 that morning that they weren't going to be there. We were asking them to come so that we could figure it out. They've changed it twice. And we can't really get any good directions because according to the representative from Cleco, who was bent over backward to try to help us, the plans that they have, the drawings that they have, they don't think are going to go through because they don't meet the specifications that DOTD does. And we can easily copy what DOTD wants us to do if they would tell us clearly what it is they're asking us to do. And I'm very upset that they never bothered to come to this meeting. We're not really getting a lot of cooperation lately from them. And this is an issue that I haven't forgotten. You know this well. I'm going to get your lights sooner or later. I was hoping it'd be much, much sooner. The administration has bent over backward. My co-council members helped me. I promise you, we're doing everything we can to get this, as well as the traffic signalization issue. Thank you.
Mr. Gould.
Yeah, real quick, I have been out to Forest Brook to see that mess. I was talking to Councilman Groby earlier this week about the possibility of looking at trying to get an additional turning lane coming out of there to just help people at least make the right turn and head to the interstate, and people may change their habits of the way they drive. Every little bit helps. On a 10-year infrastructure plan, there's a suggestion, or part of the plan, I should say, on Salt Street, there's a right turn lane proposed that would turn towards the interstate. We need to look at those things, and Jake and I have been talking about that, to maybe possibly get that implemented, sooner than the state, because we just don't know what to think with these people. I know they're talking about an October date to tell us what the plan is, but at the rate they move, I don't mean to be disrespectful to them, but at the rate they move, it could be seven years before we get there with the improvements that they're talking about. So with that, I'm going to ask that you call a question, please.
I will. Mr. Gould, do you mind if I make one quick comment? Yeah. I just want to say to all of the people that came, and I heard your comments, all of us up here care about each other's council districts, okay? And I do want to tell you, between my 5.5 years on the Slidell City Council and now 9.5 years here, I want to support my colleagues on this, because the Department of Transportation and Development, okay, and I don't want to be disrespectful, it is a tremendously slow-moving machine, okay? I'm talking about from getting a 2-second delay on a traffic light to getting a traffic light. It seems that it shouldn't be that way, but take my word for it, it is. It's study after study after study. So my colleagues, I know, are doing everything they can on your behalf, and I just wanted to say that. Thank you. All right, Mr. Gould has called the question. We had a motion by Mr. Gould to concur with the zoning denial, second by Mr. Groby. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay. Mr. Gould makes. Mr. Gould makes a motion on the resolution, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay, so the appeal is denied. Thank you. Item 2 appeals is Ronald Gilmore appealing the zoning commission denial on May 7, 2013 to rezone 1.15 acres located south of Browns Village Road, west of Donis Drive, from A3 Suburban District to I-1 Industrial District, Ward 9, District 14. Mr. Gilmore. Is Mr. Gilmore here? Okay. Is there anyone on the opposite side of the aisle on this particular appeal? Appeal number 2. Mr. Smith. Appears to be no one here tonight.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we were not aware until we got the notice on the agenda that there was going to be an appeal. We did speak with the petitioner before it went to planning and zoning about this suggested change. So I have no explanation as to why he didn't appear tonight. Haven't heard anything, and staff hadn't either, evidently.
All right.
So with that being in mind, I, in lieu of the intensity of the zoning that's being requested here in this particular neighborhood, I'd have to move to concur with the zoning commission's approval to the recommendation rather to deny.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Smith to concur with the zoning denial, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Under appeals, item 4. Well, excuse me, we need an adoption of a resolution, Mr. Smith. Motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Stefancic. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
All right, item 4 is Jack Sessions appealing the zoning commission denial on May 7, 2013 to rezone 25,000 square feet located west of Highway 11, north of 3rd Avenue from A4 single-family residential district to I-1 industrial district, Ward 8, District 14. Mr. Sessions. Okay. Come forward, right here, Mr. Sessions.
Yeah, Mr.
Excuse me?
If I may?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. As Mr. Sessions comes, we would just like to give just a little bit of background here as he approaches, and we have had some extensive discussions about this particular request, and we have, as I appreciate it, and Mr. Sessions will probably concur, we have reached an understanding as to what's going to be done here, and even though the recommendation coming from the Planning and Zoning Commission was to deny, we feel that because of the history of this property, which was zoned commercial before the Unified Development Code process took place, and Mr. Sessions missed that opportunity to participate in that, unbeknownst to him that it was being changed. It was an existing business there, a tire store, a commercial tire store, fronting on a major thoroughfare, U.S. Highway 11. And his use that he wants to ask to be permitted here, we feel is in keeping with the use that we could live with in this particular area, as well as the residents of the community as well. So as he comes forward with his comments, we want to say that we wanted to support his request to overrule the zoning commission's denial of changing it from A4 to HC2, which is what it was before, thinking that the I-1 would have permitted uses would be in keeping with and a little bit less intense in a lot of cases what a HC2 would present and pose for development. So as you come, we just wanted to kind of give that little background history as Mr. Sessions comes forward.
Okay, let me just ask real quick. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there anyone from the other side opposing this? Okay. Okay, Mr. Sessions, for the benefit of the rest of the council, would you, we heard Mr. Smith, would you like Mr. Sessions to give us an overview, or do you want to call for a vote?
No, absolutely, because I think he has something he wants to add to the
Very good. I would like
equation
to
as
hear
well.
more about it. Mr. Sessions, you
Okay,
have 5 minutes if you need it.
Okay.
There's no one here to rebut, so.
Yeah,
okay.
let's make it simple. It's just a big metal building that I put up years ago out
Okay.
on the highway as commercial. It was commercial, and I thought it was the highest commercial I could get at the time. Well, anyway, beknownst to me, in '09, they put it back to residential. I had no idea it would be residential. It's on its own corner.
Right.
The house is on the next block. Well, I wanted to put a body shop there, and I agree with Mr. Smith that I would put a deed restriction on it for the body shop. Is that right, Mr. Smith? That's what we agreed on.
Okay, so you're saying that, what you're saying is a concurrence tonight, an override of the zoning denial is, you're offering a deed restriction?
Yes, sir.
To put only a body shop on it?
At this particular time, we hadn't discussed exactly.
correct,
yes,
Mr.
yes,
Smith?
sir, to put the
Okay.
restriction on it.
All right. Anything else that you wish to tell us?
That's it, as far as I know.
Okay. All right, so, excuse me. Okay, Mr. Smith.
Yes.
What Ms. Ford picked up in the stenography is that you had mentioned A4 to HC2. Did you mean to say I1?
No, I meant to say HC2. As I stated, in context, it was formerly HC2 before the UDC took place.
Okay.
So now I understand, and
Yeah.
we do want to make the motion to override and the zoning commission's denial and make it I1.
With the deed restriction
with
that's
the deed
been stated?
restriction. That's correct.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Smith to override the zoning denial, seconded by Mr. Ortiz, including the deed restriction for a body shop. Please vote.
Mr. Chairman, would that,
Yes, sir.
is that, the deed restriction, would that be the most intense use would be a body shop, or you're not saying the only thing that got to be on that place is a body shop?
Most extent use, I would say. Yeah, the most extent use would be a body shop.
You see what I mean? I mean,
The
you're-
most, yeah, so the most intensive use would be a body shop.
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
Okay, but wait. Excuse me, Sidney. Within I-1, and you make a good point, Mr. Dean.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But
I didn't have any appeals, I just figured I'd kind of.
No, it's a good point. It's, you know.
We had that discussion with Mr. Sessions, and he understands
Sure.
the implications of that deed restriction.
Okay, but Mr. Dean now has brought up a good question, Mr. Smith. Mr. Fontenot. The term, is that the most intense? Okay? If it's in I-1, wouldn't it have to say the deed restriction is only a body shop? Because how do you determine the intensity within that I-1 district? Do you have levels of intensity that you've created?
There are no levels of intensity created in the I-1 district. Permitted is permitted. Relative to the appropriateness of the deed restrictions, I would have to kick to your legal counsel.
Okay, so I would think, Mr. Hand, it would have to be only a body shop.
Number one, we do not enforce deed restrictions.
Okay.
So it depends on the wording of the deed restriction that's submitted and who's it going to be in favor of. Because we do not, as a parish, enforce deed restrictions.
Right.
So if it's joining property owners, then if a deed restriction was put in place, it would be up to the adjoining property owners to try to enforce it. A lot's going to depend upon the wording, the exact wording as used. It would be better to look at the uses within I-1 and eliminate those that the council feels would exceed the intensity level. I don't think we should leave that open. I think it should be a very specific item. It may be better to table it and have this matter come up after the deed restriction is drafted, or preferably by an attorney representing you, so that it can be very specific, so that you know exactly what it is that you're agreeing to. Because you shouldn't leave it open for interpretation. And if the council voted on this, they'd be voting for the most uses within I-2, all the uses within I-1, I mean. So it's better to handle it that way, if that's the way you want to do it.
If time will permit, I have no problem with that. for you. Are you okay with that
What
tabling?
do you, how long are you talking? I mean,
1 month.
so 30 more days?
Yeah.
This has been like 8 months, you know?
Well,
Is
excuse
it
me.
possible that we could eliminate from
Yeah.
what we understand to be intents, the ones that we're concerned about in the
Sure.
I-1 tonight?
Because I'll eliminate them right now.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, though. It needs to be in the deed restriction.
I understand.
We can't do that. When we approve I-1, we approve all the
I-1.
uses within I-1,
Right.
including the most intense. And again, we do not enforce deed restrictions.
One more?
So, Mr. Sessions, you would have to have an attorney. You would have to get the I-1 possibilities from Mr. Fontenot and have an attorney draft the maximum intensity as a body shop.
And have all the rest of them eliminated. That's right.
That a less
right.
intense could be in there.
That's exactly right.
Anything more intense could not be in there.
Sure, that's exactly right.
Yeah, but, you know, you might need 30 days to get that done. I don't know.
It's been a long, drawn-out process, I tell you.
Okay, so Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith? No.
30 days.
Given the variables that we have in front of us, you know, I would suggest that we go ahead and table it, Jack, until next month and get all these pieces worked out. That way you know exactly what you're dealing with.
Mr. Smith, the clerk just mentioned something to me which might speed the process up a little bit.
Thank you so much.
We could adopt it as I-1, and then it'll go in for introduction only, predicated upon the understanding that we received that deed restriction. And this item will not actually be voted on until next month, if that's acceptable.
So that would require us to introduce an ordinance, just introduce an ordinance to, okay, for I-1. So we'll do that then. Mr. Chairman, we will.
Yes, sir.
We will take that action and introduce an ordinance to override and just override.
Mr. Hand, your recommendation say it again, please?
The recommendation is to override, to approve the I-1 zoning classification, then to proceed to introduce an ordinance predicated upon the receipt and acceptance of the deed restriction as we've identified tonight, and therefore the deed restriction must be received prior to this matter coming up for a vote next month.
So moved.
That is your motion. Seconded by, was that Mr. Canulet? Mr. Canulet.
Jared, can you repeat that again?
I can't even remember it. Please vote.
Go get your lawyer tomorrow now.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay. Given Steve, given the fact that what he has to do with the predication, do we hold off on adoption of the resolution?
No, I think you're
Excuse me.
you're overriding.
We need to introduce an ordinance.
Right, you need to
With
introduce the
those
ordinance.
provisions in it.
You need to just introduce the ordinance, and
Who-
they'll present an amendment, which we'll call substitution next month.
Yep. Who wants to make that motion? Motion by Mr. Canulet, seconded by everybody. Mr. Smith, seconded by. Okay, no vote.
Is that it? Thank y'all, folks.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
sir.
Thank y'all.
Okay, appeal number 6 is Clint Pearson Jr. appealing the zoning commission approval on May 7th, 2013, to rezone 3 acres located at the north end of Shady Lane and Pallet Drive from A1 Suburban District to A1A Suburban District, Ward 4, District 4. Mr. Pearson.
Thank you. My name is Clint Pearson from Covington, and I represent a lady that, Mrs. Zackin is her name. She owns some property that's commonly been referred to as a Paylett property. She is a Paylett, and her family's owned this property for 75 years, I guess. I don't know, a long time. And her property is about 100 and something acres. It sits on the south side of Covington Country Club. It's on the river. It's a piece of property between Covington Country Club and Beauchene. The St. Tammany Water District number 3 in 2006, let me back up. St. Tammany Water District number 3 provides water service to Covington Country Club and to Riverwood, and they have for years. And they have 2 wells, one in each one of the subdivisions. In 2006, right before the country club, I was the board of the estates of somebody, whoever had charge of the golf course, sold the water district a 1/4 acre. It sits alongside, right beside their water tower, which is, if you're familiar with the golf course, the water tower sits between 2 fairways, and they also have some maintenance barns in there. The water district bought a 1/4 acre for the express purpose of drilling an additional well. So they bought it, and then a few months later, the golf course was sold to Mr. Blossom. And that was in 2006, and they had an engineer that did soil borings for them when before they bought it, and they said the property's fine. He bought it, and then finally they got around to, they were going to drill a well. In 2007, they sort of got active in pursuing that. And Mr. Harmon, the engineer, in 2008, they authorized him to enter into a $40,000 contract with a tree company to clear the 1/4 acre right beside the water tower. I have a picture of it if you want to see it. But at that time, it was wooded. And so in July of 2006, Mr. Harmon wrote a letter to the chairman of the commission, the district, that the trees have been cleared. Now the water well, the drilling truck can get in there. We can drill the well. And that was in July of '06. And they've been talking about this for a long time, and they were negotiating with Mr. Blossman to get a 10-foot underground electrical right-of-way because they needed more electricity, which they could get from Riverwood. Clico had a facility in Riverwood, and across the fairway from the water tower is Riverwood. It's along the, I'll show you. I have a picture. I'm sure you know where it is. But anyway, there's some minutes. This is all in a suit record. Mr. Blossman, they couldn't agree on the price. So the correct thing to do when a government body wants something, they can expropriate it if there's a public purpose. And so how much you pay isn't dictated by the guy that you're taking it from. It's dictated by an appraisal. And they hired the McHenry firm to do an appraisal. And that appraisal was underway because Mr. Blossman wanted too much money. They didn't think that was fair. While that appraisal apparently was being done, because they had already authorized it and hired him and waiting on it, like I said, in July of '06, they cleared the trees. In August of '06, the very next month, that engineer went out with Mr. Galloway, who was a maintenance guy for the waterworks, and the maintenance guy showed the engineer from Baton Rouge the 3 acres that they decided that they were going to drill a well on. Well, nobody in this parish has ever needed 3 acres. A 1/4 acre is more than sufficient, and it's the same amount of land that the engineer had told them that they needed. Well, Mrs. Zackin, they started talking to her, well, we want 3 acres of your property, and she didn't want to do it, so they filed an expropriation suit. In an expropriation suit, you've got to dot the i's and cross the t's because that's a derogation of property rights of owners that the government is going to take your property. They've got to demonstrate and do certain things. They filed a suit, and we tried the case, and they won. We had 3 days of trial, and it baffles me, but anyway, that case is on appeal. It's in the First Circuit right now, and whenever the First Circuit finishes their business, they may reverse it and say, look, y'all didn't do it right, and give Mrs. Zakin her property back. So that, it seems sort of
Is that Steve's?
a waste of time and effort.
Is that yours? Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
Excuse me, sir. You're into your rebuttal time now.
Okay, that's fine.
You have 5 minutes plus 2.
All right. Whenever the Court of Appeals finishes their decision, and I can tell you, I just got one Friday where they reversed another decision, and same thing, and just totally threw out a sheriff's sale that had taken. In this case, it was an expropriation sale. They won, and there's no suspensive appeal, only divided appeals in expropriation cases. So that could happen. But even worse than that, I mean, that doesn't make too much sense to me to rezone a piece of property that maybe in the next 6 months, they might not own it. So they certainly shouldn't go drill a well, and they got a $2 million well operation they want to drill there. And if they get reversed, they're going to have to dig it up and haul it off. But worse than that, the St. Tammany District, Water District Number 3, their territory limits are Covington Country Club and Riverwood. Mrs. Zakin's property, this 3 acres, is not in their district. It lies outside of it. And for the life of me, I can't imagine why you would grant some rezoning on property that they can't operate in anyway. And to show you that that is correct, in the minutes of the board, Water District Board meeting in January of '08, it says, quote, and I'll give you a copy of it, "We need to confirm the water district boundaries. If the new property," this is Mrs. Zakin's property, "is outside the current boundaries, then we will need to get the parish to amend the district boundaries." Well, maybe that happened. I don't think it did. Ms. Zakin certainly doesn't think it did, and I've done a little research, and I don't think it did. But it's certainly a reason. If they went down to Lacombe and said, well, we'll drill a well in Lacombe. Well, you can't go to Lacombe and do that. You don't have operational authority outside of your district. Have I used up all my time?
About a half a minute.
Well, anyway, obviously, there's a lot of litigation involved in this, and it's in the First Circuit right now. And if it just doesn't seem logical at all to grant this rezoning when they may not own the property pretty soon. Maybe they will. Maybe I'll lose the appeal. Say, okay, you own it. But at least they've got to get authority to be over there operating. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Sidney, as Mr. Shane is coming forward, was an amendment done to change the outlay of this district, this water district? Huh?
That's, I don't know if the boundaries of the water districts were changed.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
it requires an ordinance of the parish council to amend the boundaries of a water district. And the council has not amended the boundaries of this district in the recent or even extended past.
Okay, so, Mr. Shane, if you'd bear with me 1 second, okay? I just want to understand the implications here. So, Terry, if we have not amended the boundaries, does that have any bearing on this appeal?
It should have been brought up it should have been addressed at the trial. And the court should have entered some type of ruling. Of course, I don't know if an objection was made at the time that the case was tried, but certainly, I mean, it seems like it would be appropriate during the trial. Now, it cannot be brought up in the appellate court. Is my understanding that the property has already exchanged hands and that the title has been tendered and received by the district. So the title to this property now legally is in that district. They, as the owners, have the right to come before you and ask for a zoning change. If the district, in order to drill a water well and operate a water well, legally needs it to be within their geographic boundaries, they'll then have to approach the council to ask that the boundaries of the district be amended to include that particular parcel.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, let me just remind
Yeah.
my colleagues that this is a zoning issue. It's not an issue about the boundaries of the water district, so we just need to keep focused on what we have before us today.
And Mr. Bender, that, Mr. Falconer is correct. The matter before the council is a matter of land use, whether or not the proposed rezoning is appropriate for this particular property at that particular location.
Mr. Shane?
Any more clarifications? I don't think I've ever had one quite like this.
This was dubbed the case of the lawyers dueling.
Sure. Good evening. My name's Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, and I have the pleasure of representing St. Tammany Parish Water District Number 3. With all due respect to my good friend and fine lawyer, Mr. Pearson, I would like you to listen to my story for a minute, and because I think I have a much simpler story to present to you this evening, and it goes as follows. There's some established facts in this case, and that is that the St. Tammany Parish Water District Number 3 was successful in procuring a judgment from the local district court, making it the title record owner of a 3-acre parcel. That judgment is being contested on appeal, as Mr. Pearson discussed. That judgment is not under a suspensive appeal, which means that the effect of the judgment literally vests title in St. Tammany Parish Water District Number 3. So with that having been said, to file a zoning case, you have to be the owner of the property. It has been demonstrated when we filed the application, as reviewed by Mr. Han, that my client, St. Tammany Parish Water District Number 3, is the owner of a 3-acre parcel. The property is currently zoned A1. And if you look at the code at A1 and you also look at the code at A3, you will see under permitted uses, under miscellaneous, number 1, one of the miscellaneous uses is a community central water treatment well and storage facility, which is exactly what St. Tammany Parish Water District Number 3 wants to do. But guess what? If the court says that you have a title to 3 acres and you find that the property is zoned, which requires a density of 5 acres, the parcel that my client acquired through the judgment of expropriation needs to be rezoned to A1A. The uses in A1 and A1A are identical. Before filing this case, I verified with your department and staff what was the current zoning, A1. What would the zoning need to be if the parcel is only 3 acres in size, A1A? We filed the case. The staff recommended approval. The zoning commission unanimously recommended the change of zoning. So I believe the matter really is very simple before you this evening. A 3-acre parcel needs to be zoned A1A. The use is the same in either zone. If the things Mr. Pearson talked about are correct, there's a court of appeal in Baton Rouge that I'm sure will address those issues at the right time. This is not the right venue, nor is it the right time for those issues to be taken into consideration with what's before you this evening. I ask that you concur with the zoning commission recommendation and that you rezone this property A1A.
All right, back to the council. Mr. Pearson, you're out of time. I apologize. Back to the council, Mr. Falconer.
Yeah, I move to concur with the approval of the zoning commission.
Motion by Mr. Falconer to concur, seconded by Mr. Gould. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Mr. Falconer, introduction of an ordinance.
Yeah, I move that we introduce the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Falconer, seconded by Mr. Thompson. All right, item 7 is Randy Falgout appealing the zoning commission denial on May 7, 2013, to rezone 1.64 acres located at the northwest corner of Press Sharp Road and Morris Taylor Road from A2 Suburban District to A2 Suburban District and MHO Manufactured Housing Overlay, Ward 2, District 6. Mr. Falgout.
Thank you for your time. This particular property was originally 7 acres. it had manufactured homes on it already, and I had broken it up into 4 different parcels. So to go back to put another manufactured home on it, I have to apply for the HMO. This neighborhood is pretty well mixed. They have several stick homes, several HMOs. It's been that way. I've been up here since '77. It's always been that way. But we run into prejudice against manufactured homes, and really, it's the people you have to be concerned with, not the type of home. I've seen some beautiful manufactured homes. There's a modular home a half a mile away, and if you look at it, you couldn't tell the difference between a manufactured home and a modular home. Actually, they look similar on the inside also. Where I live, on 1082, I have 11 acres, and I have a manufactured home on my property. My daughter lives there. To put another manufactured home on there, I'd have to do the same thing with the overlay. I have a son that lives with me that's disabled, and we thought about using this property for him. But again, he's on disability. He could afford a manufactured home, but he can't afford to build a house, or he wouldn't be living with us. The people on the road, I surely didn't intend to stir up a hornet's nest. I don't know where all this opposition even comes from, because if you go to the whole neighborhood, they got Elvis Taylor Road, House Creek Road, Owen Sharp Road. They all are mixed this way. It's not a bad thing. I'm not trying to request anything that's not already in place. I don't know where the opposition comes from, and I'm sure Ms. Casabon, who made the motion to deny this, was thinking that she was probably doing the right thing, but I've never been explained to why it was really denied. So here we are. I'm not here to complain about that. I just want to see what you all have to say, and we'll just go from here.
Thank you, Mr.
And I'll
Falvey.
save some time.
Yes, you have time saved. Anyone from the other side?
My name is Oscar McCain, and I live right next to this parcel of property. It used to surround me in a horseshoe. From my understanding, the original division of the property was so that Mr. Falgout could give his children partials so that they could move on it. It's all been sold. When we were at the zoning meeting, he had his potential customers to buy this parcel of property with him and stood up there and told them then that it was for a family member again. When I bought my house 12 years ago, there was approximately 4 trailers within close proximity of this house. Since then, those 4 trailers are gone. 1 trailer was replaced with a newer model. Hey, big improvement, I'll admit it, compared to what was there. My property value has went up, according to the tax assessment, every year since I bought the house. Before I purchased this home, it was tax exempt for its whole, since the house was built. Another mobile home in the area is going to drop my actual property value, not the tax assessed value, because they are two different. Not to mention the other houses that have been built and the other land that has been built in the area, sold in the area, has had to be a minimum of 5 to 10 acres. And people are building some nice houses up in here. There's other trailers in the back, same situation there. There is a spot right past this piece of property on Press Sharp where they pulled out 2 mobile homes and it was replaced with a much nicer single mobile home. So the mobile homes are coming out. There have been a couple to come in, but not near as many as went out. The
whole area, just about the whole area, except for a few people that we could not get in contact with, signed a petition with their names and addresses. Some signed, some husbands and wives signed on the same line, to ask that you would consider denying this request, because I'm constantly making improvements to my property, trying to improve the value of my investment in the future in case I decide to sell or move or whatever happens to my house. And mobile homes coming in on top of us is just going to deplete the value. The nicer homes that are going in down the street when those parcels are being sold increase the value, but the mobile homes, having it look like a mobile home lot right there, when you turn into press sharp and you make the curve, it's going to be a pretty sight. The trashy mobile homes have been going out. We don't want new mobile homes to come in so that in 15 years they're run down and look trashy as well. Thank you. Thank you, sir, and you'll have time, or at least that your side will have time left.
Thank you.
Mr. Falgu?
Again, it's not the home, it's the people. We're not planning on putting a 50-year-old raggedy house trailer. Today, the manufactured homes, and I'm not a salesman, but they look nice if they're well kept. It just depends on the person that gets it. And he's right, this property did surround his property, and I did subdivide it to sell it. I got this piece left. I had some people interested. Of course, that may have gone by the boards. It's been over a month since the zoning meeting, and it got denied because that's what they wanted to do. Young people have to start somewhere. Everybody can't just go buy a house right off the bat. They have to have a place, and this neighborhood has always been that way. It's improving, but I did a lot to improve it too. I spent a lot of time on that place. It looked like a junkyard around his house before I bought it. It looks a lot different now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, back from the other side. Let me take a minute here, check. Steve, Mr. Falgu, how much time does he have left? Before their rebuttal? Total? No, that's fine. Minute and a half and 3. Okay, so you have 3 total minutes, sir. Improvements? It took us weeks to figure out who to call when he tried to fill the pond in with TVs, batteries, computers, and anything else he could throw in it before he put dirt on it. Finally, the DEQ come out there and shut him down, made him get a dumpster and dispose of the garbage properly and fill it the correct way. During the process of which, I received an immediate threat that one of my sheds would burn down and filed a report with the sheriff's department in case it did. He's not there to make improvements. He doesn't live in that little community. And all of these streets, yeah, there's House Creek, there's a bunch of other streets up the road. Off of 40 are their own little communities when you drive into them. You can combine the community if you want to in a general area for a census. I don't associate with many people on House Creek on an individual personal level. The people on Press Sharp and Maurice Taylor, I associate with. That's where I live. That is my community. That's where my kids get out in the street and play. That's where I intend on hopefully one day having something to hand down to my children. A legacy of when you get something, take care of it. And if we cram it in with mobile homes, no matter what you do now, in 10 or 15 years, it's going to be back to being the junkyard. And like I said, it looked bad in there when we first moved in. When I bought my house, I bought it because it had the ordinances or moratoriums or whatever you want to call them of the 5 acres, no mobile homes. That's why I purchased up in there. That's why these other ladies that are here with me tonight purchased their land and built their houses. Supposed to be 5-acre plots, no mobile homes. We don't want it in our community. And the petition and walking around and asking the people in the community to sign it, the ones that we could catch, only had one person that said they wouldn't sign it, and he didn't say he wouldn't sign it because he agreed with him. He wouldn't sign it because he didn't want to get involved. That's where we stand in that community on mobile homes coming in. We don't want them. They've been taking them out. We don't want them back. Thank you, sir. Is his time up, Steve?
He has about a minute and a half also.
Okay. Mr. Falgout, you have a minute and a half. Other gentleman,
Well-
minute and a half.
I just
Now,
like
what
to.
does Mr. Falgout have, Steve? Minute and a half?
They both have a minute and a half left, but,
Yeah,
but
okay.
normally we allow them to speak only twice, rather than rebuttal after rebuttal after
Yeah,
rebuttal. I
that-
think you should be aware of that.
Okay.
Gary, we had time what they had left over to the rebuttal time, and they didn't use it, so, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I mean, that's the way it would be.
Go ahead, Mr. Falgout.
I think you all are far too busy to get caught up into a neighborhood disagreement. The pond deal, when I pumped out the pond, it was full of bicycles and old TVs and tractor tires and trash. And I did throw some more trash in it. And no paint, no oil, just old building material that was left from the trailers that got hauled out. And I even asked people in the neighborhood if they wanted to get rid of stuff, because I thought it was the right thing that you could do that. Well, he called the DEQ, and he's right, they stopped it. And I did get a track hoe and a dumpster and cleaned it and had it all approved and filled the pond, which was an eyesore. Just one of many things that I did. But this is just sour grapes. This petition, that means nothing. Anybody could run up and down the neighborhood and get paper signed for something or other. You can't verify the signatures. It's not notarized. It means nothing. So I guess it just falls up to you all now.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Falgout. What is this other gentleman's name? Mr. McCann? Is someone else that would like? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Got a minute and a half.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Pertini. I live at 83272 Preshoff Road. That area with the pond that was overflowing in the neighborhood was an eyesore. And I built a 3,600 square foot house on Preshoff Road. I built it there because it was beautiful in the area. If you bring trailers in, it's not going to be. I pay a pretty hefty property tax there, and if you bring things like trailers in the area, my property is going down. I'm sure my tax won't, but my property will go down. So I am really against putting a mobile home there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Falgout, you probably have 30 seconds left.
Listen, I didn't intend to ruin anybody's property values. There are a lot of places in St. Tammany that are restricted where you could put just certain size homes, like Blue Lake, the Highlands, Semalusa, all right in the area. But if you buy in an area that has manufactured homes there already, it's like buying a house by the airport and complaining about the noise. So I don't know how else to explain it. I guess it's just up to you all now.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any time left, Steve, for the other people?
They have about 45 seconds.
45 seconds.
I don't know what
Anybody,
to
anybody? No? Okay, back to the council.
Good.
Let's see. Mr. Tanner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I happen to live on House Creek Road, which is the road next to Preshoff Road. First dwelling you see when you turn in on House Creek Road is a mobile home on the right-hand side of the road. There's 7 mobile homes between me and Highway 40. They have been a mobile home. There was mobile homes there when I built my house. My house is only 3,100 square feet. I'm sorry, it's not 3,600. But I don't, it was my choice to build there. I knew there were mobile homes there. And when you come out into the rural area, then you have to live like the rural area lives. Now, we have restrictions on mobile home and how they look and what has to be done as far as skirting and landscaping and what have you. And I have seen some mobile homes that look a lot better than a lot of stick homes that, in that same area. So I am moving to override the zoning denial of this property and allow mobile home overlay. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Tanner to overturn the zoning denial, seconded by Mr. Gould. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, and Mr. Tanner, a motion on introduction of an ordinance.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Thank you. Okay, appeal number 8 is Kristen McLaren appealing the zoning commission approval on May 7, 2013 to rezone 7,200 square feet located at the northwest corner of Marquette Street and 3rd Street from HC2 Highway Commercial District to A5 Two-Family Residential District, Ward 4, District 5. Ms. McLaren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I'm Kristen McLaren. I'm a resident of Carriage Lane Estates in Mandeville. I'm also serving as president of the Homeowners Association Board, so I'm here on behalf of them as well. Just to orient you as it relates to this property, it sits actually just outside of our subdivision. There are 2 arteries that feed our subdivision, and this property has primary frontage on one of those 2 arteries. Marquette Street is the street I'm talking about, referencing, and it's a standard 16-foot wide road. It's got some pretty steep ditches on either side of it, so there would not be an opportunity to use that for passing. It is currently zoned HC2. I'm not sure how it got zoned that because it's not actually on a highway, it's in a residential area. We're asking that for the council to override the zoning approval, and rather than having it zoned A5 two-family residential, to have it zoned A4 single-family residential. The primary reason for this is uniformity. The surrounding area is all zoned A4. I've driven the area actually a couple of times now, and there's no single-family housing unit there. By breaking the uniformity of the area and putting in a two-family residential housing, we're also concerned about the property values in our neighborhood. Secondly, there's a large concern over parking. Currently, the lot is being used for overflow parking by surrounding residents, and if you take that away and you have a two-family residential, certainly that's at the property owner's discretion, but it's going to necessitate street parking, and we're concerned about that cutting off the artery, being as though there are some steep ditches on either side. In conclusion, I agree with the property owner that it should not be zoned commercial, and I respectfully ask the council to rezone it from A5 to A4 single-family residential. There are 2 other members of my board here tonight, and any of us are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
They already downzoned to A5. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this will make it a little easier to understand. Okay.
Ma'am, you want to go ahead and state your, ma'am?
Yeah, okay.
State your name, please.
Okay, my name is Adelaide Nolan, and I'm here to respond to Kristen McLaurin's appeal of the zone.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah, just try to get a little closer to the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm here to respond to Kristen McLaurin's appeal of the Zoning Commission's approval of my requested change from HC2 Highway Commercial to A5 Two-Family Residential. First, I'll state my reasons for this request. Currently, I'm selling 2 rental properties, one in Baton Rouge and one in Pass Christian, in which I at one time lived, in order to consolidate on property adjacent to my present residence. I'm in my 80th year and need something nearby for more easy management. Secondly, I'll address Kristen's concerns. The street on the block of Marquette between Asbury and 3rd is narrow with no shoulder, allowing for beside the street, thus not allowing for beside the street parking. The property in question is located on the northwest corner of Marquette and 3rd. Kristen is concerned that the two-family dwelling I propose to build will not be provided with adequate parking. Also, that Lyle Toomer and his wife Jackie, who live on the southwest corner of Marquette and 3rd, will lose the 2 overflow places they currently use on my property. Lyle's wife is a paraplegic, and on occasion, emergency vehicles have been sent to their home. Kristen is also concerned because she has a son who will soon be driving. First, Lyle Toomer himself has no objection. He states that he can pull up a car onto the land beyond his drive, which I have actually seen him do, thus giving him 3 parking places on his property. He also has a carport now used as an exit in a seating zone. Or if necessary, he says he can put in 2 culverts, thus replacing the 2 places he now uses on my property. I've highlighted in yellow the current available parking places. Secondly, the 2 units I propose to build will not be large, each having 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. The parking area, first, there is actually another 2-family dwelling in the block of 3rd, south of Sharp. It's the only one, but there is actually another two-family dwelling. The parking area in front will be 25 feet by 72 feet, allowing ample room for at least 3 vehicles for each residence. Plus, there may be at each end an additional oblique parking place. Also, I have offered to Lyle Toomer and would also offer to my tenants, if overflow becomes necessary, the 2 available parking places on the gravel area beside my drive. They were only occupied 3 times in the past year when I hosted family birthday parties. Also, there are usually a couple of beside-the-street parking places across the street, which my overflow company has used on several occasions. Also to be considered is that although the block of Marquette between Asbury and 3rd is the most frequently used exit, there are 2 other exits available, one of them being Carriage Lane, a short 2-block street between Marquette and Sharp Road. Kristen's home at 106 Trinity Lane is about equidistance between these 2 exits. The traffic on Sharp is lighter than Asbury and has the same speed limit of 35 miles per hour. The 3rd available exit is the block of 3rd between Marquette and Sharp. If ever the block of Marquette between 3rd and Asbury is blocked by an emergency or other vehicle, Kristen's son can turn south onto 3rd. Or if turning in onto Marquette from Asbury and finding a blockage, just exiting left through the parking lot of the commercial building on the northeast corner of Asbury and Marquette, and using the 2 other available entrances. I've lived here for almost 7 years, and I've never seen this area blocked. Finally, none of my immediate neighbors have any objection to my proposed zoning change. Neither Lyle and Jackie Toomey, nor the residents on the southeast corner of Marquette and 3rd, nor my across-the-street neighbors, Norman and Kilo McKay, nor my neighbors to the north, Tom and Mary Bissett. I've been able to contact 13 of the 18 residences on 3rd, living in the 2 blocks north of Sharp Road, and none of them object. In the block in which I live, I was able to contact all but 2 of my neighbors. One of these neighbors asked me to remember her daughter when my residences were complete. Also, a friend of mine in New Orleans asked me to remember a friend of hers. Both would be single residences.
Ms. McLaren.
Thank you very much. I appreciate what Ms. Nolan is.
Excuse me, before we get started, she has 3 minutes left and 2 minutes rebuttal, and the other lady has 30 seconds left and 2 minutes rebuttal, and we should limit it to rebuttals. One rebuttal.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanczyk. I appreciate what Ms. Nolan is trying to do, and I also appreciate the time that she put into speaking with me and trying to get these questions answered. Again, I just implore you to look at the handout that she provided. Marquette Street is a main artery. It is 16 feet wide. It's got ditches that range from 1.5 feet to 2.5 feet, depending on sediment deposits and vegetation, so there is no opportunity to pass there. Also, what she has highlighted is number 42 at the intersection of 3rd and Marquette in that southwest corner is they use her lot currently for overflow parking, and so there's a lot of concern as to how that's going to impact the traffic on Marquette Street. I do believe that there is a place in St. Tammany for affordable housing, and I certainly support that. I support the two-family residential. However, I don't believe that this is an appropriate area given that every other surrounding property is A4 single-family residential. Again, I respectfully ask for you to override the zoning proposal. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. You had said something about every single zoning around it is A4. According to the map I'm seeing, there's HC2 and NC4. Am I looking at an incorrect map?
I apologize, I misspoke. I've not seen a zoning map of this, so you may be looking at that, so I apologize.
I just want to make sure I'm evaluating this
So,
properly.
right there at Asbury, on the other side of that lot, is some commercial properties that have frontage on Asbury. There's not any area on Marquette Street that is commercial that has frontage on Marquette Street. So on Asbury, right there at Marquette, on both the north and south section of that, you do have commercial properties. But when I say that all the residential areas are zoned A4, I'm talking about from that point all the way back, all the way down Marquette Street. There is not a single other two-family residential structure in the area. I hope I answered everybody's question. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Okay, now, Steve, how much regular time does Ms. Nolan have left? She has 0 regular time left. So she's into her rebuttal.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Ms. Nolan. Okay, Ms. Nolan, you have, Ms. Nolan, you have 30 seconds left before you would get into your rebuttal time.
And I have 2 minutes for that, is that?
You have 30 seconds plus 2 minutes
Plus
of
2
rebuttal
minutes,
time.
yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. The zoning on 3rd Street is actually, quite a number of lots are actually zoned commercial. On the other side of me, they're planning on
Can you
building.
speak up, please?
Oh,
Just a little bit. Try that.
thank you, okay. Okay, the zoning on 3rd Street, a number of the lots are commercial, and beside me, somebody is actually going to build a body shop, and in the next block on the other side of the street, there are 3 lots that are zoned commercial that can be used in that manner. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what I was going to say. I'm planning on building an attractive structure. It's not going to be, I don't think it's going to bring anybody's property values down. In addition, I've lived there for 7 years, and I've never seen the street blocked, ever. In fact, I've clocked the cars going by, and there were like, at 12:30, in a 10-minute period, there were about 8 cars going by on one occasion, and today I did it, there were 9 cars going by. And at 5:30, there were 10 cars going by, and I've never seen any obstruction. The emergency vehicle that I have seen at my neighbor's house actually parked in the driveway. There's never been any blockage, and I can't anticipate any. And something else there, but I can't remember it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Ms. McLaren, Steve, how much time does Ms. McLaren have?
We were going to have one thing plus the.
She
appeal,
already
so
did,
she is zero.
she already did her rebuttal?
Yes, she did. She
Okay.
did first, and this lady did second.
And Ms. Nolan went into her rebuttal. She did go into her rebuttal
Both of them
time.
went into rebuttal time.
So their rebuttal's finished?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Gould.
All right, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the zoning in the area, and it appears during the comprehensive rezoning is that in recognition of the fact that some of the commercial structures that were facing Asbury, but had property that extended all the way back to 3rd Street, and there's a couple of them in the HC2 area that you're looking at, which is the darker shade. And then in the NC4 area, we do have a couple of businesses more closely located to the corner of Sharp Road that are facing 3rd Street, and those are commercial structures. So I believe the intent of the plan, as we adopted it, was to take this section and unify it as commercial, okay? When I look at the proposal, I'm looking at 3 units that would be in that location now at that corner, that would be basically on a 60-foot, 90-foot wide lot that's 120 feet deep. I'm going to move to override the approval based on what I'm looking at with the plan, based on what I've heard tonight, plus looking at what the intent is. There's only one other double on that entire street on 3rd, so it kind of would break what's there now. Many of the structures on 3rd Street are still residential in use at this point in time, but it appears to me that the plan is someday for this to go commercial, and more than likely for businesses that are located along the Asbury side, probably extending back. I know the dentist that's over there has a entrance on Asbury, but their property goes all the way to 3rd, and they use the back part of their property as their parking area. So with that, I'm going to move to override.
Excuse me, motion by Mr. Gould to override the zoning approval, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Please vote.
Never mind. Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Okay, Mr.
Move
Gould,
on a resolution.
Motion by Mr. Gould, adoption of resolution, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, ordinances for adoption. Item 1 is ordinance calendar number 4990, ordinance amending.
Mr. Chair, would you mind taking a 10-minute break? Or 5. I'm willing to compromise.
What's that, Brad? Hey, Rat, you're the senior member. What do you want to do? Huh? Okay, ordinance for adoption. Item 1 is ordinance. Rat overruled you, Gene.
It's called seniority prevails.
Yes. Item 1 is ordinance calendar number 4990, ordinance amending official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.97 acres from A1 to A2 and MHO Ward 3, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote. Read. Give me a break.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Ordinance calendar number 4991, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 5.31 acres from A1A to A2, Ward 2, District 2. Mr. Sharp.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sharp, seconded by Mr. Thompson. All in favor, please vote. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
All right, item number 3, ordinance calendar number 4992, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 3.28 acres from A1 to A2 and mobile home overlay Ward 2, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Tanner. Is there a second? Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Item number 4, ordinance calendar number 4993, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 2.64 acres from A1 to A2, Ward 2, District 3. Mr. Thompson. Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Item number 5, ordinance calendar number 4994, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify .570 acres from NC4 to HC2, Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Sharp. Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Item number 6, ordinance calendar number 4995, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 16.811 acres from NC2 to and PBC1 to A4A, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Gould. Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Bender. Please vote.
Mr. Dean. Motion is unanimous, 2 absent.
Item number 7, ordinance calendar number 4996, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to establish a PUD for 16.811 acres. Which district is this in? District, oh, there we go. Mr. Gould, sorry. Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Item number 8, ordinance calendar number 4997, ordinance to declare 2 lots as surplus and authorize the donation of same, Ward 4, District 10.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
All right, item number 9, ordinance calendar number 4998, ordinance to correct the road and drainage inventory, wards 3, 4, and 8, districts 2, 3, 7, and 13.
So moved.
Who did that? That would be Mr. Artigue, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, 1 absent.
Item number 10, ordinance calendar number 4999, ordinance accepting finalized re-subdivisions into the road and drainage inventories, wards 3 and 8, districts 5 and 14. That would be you, Mr. Gould. Second? By Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item number 11, ordinance calendar number 5000, ordinance to correct the road and drainage inventory to include Military Heights Drive lateral Ward 3, District 2. That would be you, Mr. Sharp. So moved, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item number 12, ordinance calendar number 5001, ordinance to amend Parish Code Chapter 13 regarding prohibiting the use of compression brakes, Ward 3, District 2. Again, Mr. Sharp. Motion by Mr. Sharp, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item number 13, ordinance calendar number 5002, ordinance to amend the Parish Code, Chapter 9, to amend the boundaries of garbage, District number 1, Ward 8, District 8. Mr. Canulet. Motion by Mr. Canulet, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Please vote.
Happy days are here.
I'm trying to get you into the bathroom as quickly as I can.
It's too late. I have a restraint.
Don't go yet, I'm missing somebody. Motion is unanimous, one
With that one,
absent.
we're going downhill.
All right, nominations. Nominate one member. Whoop, did I miss one? Gee whiz, it's not on my agenda. Hold on. Stand by. That's right. Okay, ordinance, thank you, Jake. Number 14, ordinance calendar number 5003, ordinance to rename Horace Street as Starfish Lane, Ward 4, District 5, Mr. Starfish.
I told you it was important.
I'm telling you.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote. Thank you, Jake.
Lake Harbor people.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Starfish Lane, not on my, that's all right. All right, we've got nomination, one member to the St. Tammany Parish Zoning and Planning Boards to replace Dale Mackey, resigned, a parish-wide appointment. Is there a motion to open the floor for nominations?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Stefancic, seconded by Mr. Groby. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
All right, are there then nominations for this position? Mr. Stefancic?
Yes, I did receive word from Dale, I think the time they turned it into Don, that he was going to be resigning from the Planning and Zoning Commission due to, his wife's traveling and him needing to be along with her, and he was going to miss too many meetings. I've looked for several people. I've asked, I interviewed, I know that I asked for people to volunteer for this, and I interviewed a lot of people. Some of them backed away real quick. Some of them, after I got done talking with them, walked away. And some of them I didn't want.
Give us a name.
But I did find a person from my district that I'd like to put up, and that is Kirk Drum, and I sent all of you his resume, and Kirk is here tonight. He was at the zoning meeting last night. Or the night before last, and he was at my meeting. He's been at my meeting several times, and he's been president and secretary treasurer of his Oakmont Homeowners Association. He's right in the middle of the District 11, so I would like to nominate him for that position.
I'll second.
Move to close nominations.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to close the nominations. Is there a second? Mr. Smith, in seconds. Please vote. You got to clear these out. Okay.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Mr. Chairman, with the motion to close the nominations, I know it would normally lay over a month to next month, and anyone else could add, but I have a sense that maybe no one else is going to nominate anyone. And and talking with Dave Doherty, who is chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. He says they have a rough time getting people to the June, July, August meetings because of vacations. And if we could, to go ahead and make the position tonight. So I would like to move to approve the nomination, suspend the rules and approve the nomination tonight.
Suspend the rules and appoint. There's a motion by Mr. Stefanczyk to suspend the rules and appoint, seconded by Mr. Bellisario. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Mr. Drum, welcome aboard.
I hope I did the right thing.
And you have our sympathies.
Mr. Drum, you saw tonight, you may have second thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that whatever needs to be done to sign this into place so that he could attend the meeting next Tuesday. First meeting of the Planning Commission he would have would be next Tuesday because Dale has resigned effective last Tuesday.
Mr. Stefanczyk, I will be at the Planning Commission meeting next Tuesday, so I can swear in Mr. Drum in the event that the oaths of office don't make him to him.
Can we get a real attorney?
As soon as we get a real parliamentarian.
Okay.
All right, order in the council room.
This is getting rough.
All right, the next item on the agenda, moving right along, would be the appointments. Item number 1, resolution to appoint one member to the board of the St. Tammany Parish Tourist Convention Commission to represent the west side of the parish. We have 2 nominees, and I understand we're going to be passing out voting sheets. All right, ladies and gentlemen, while the votes are being tallied, we'll move to the second item under appointments. Item number 2, resolution to appoint Ryan Murphy to replace Danny Curtis, resigned, to the Board of Commissioners for the St. Tammany Parish Fire Protection District Number 8. Mr. Gould.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
The next item on the agenda is the award of bids. Bid item, Parish Official Journal, July 1st, 2013 to June 30th, 2014. Ms. Long, would you like to address this item, please?
Yes, sir. The purchasing department did place out for bid the official journal for the coming year, beginning July 1st, 2013. They went to the local papers. We also advertised on our website and in our official journal. And we had one respondent, the St. Tammany Parish farmer, and they were deemed responsible. And their quote was for 90 cents per column inch. And we recommend accepting the low responsible bidder, the St. Tammany farmer.
Thank you, Ms. Long. We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Tanner, seconded by Mr. Bellisario, that we accept the bid from the St. Tammany farmer. Please vote. Vote.
Mr. Groby. Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
All right, finally, while they're still tallying votes over there, under discussions and other matters, item number 1, motion to refer to the zoning commission for recommendation the proposed rezoning of 1.397 acres on U.S. Highway 190 bypass in Section 38, Township 6, Range 11 East from its current zoning of I-1 to HC2, Ward 3, District 3. Mr. Thompson. Motion by Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Dean. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Perfect timing. All right, the votes have been taken, and the new member of the St. Tammany Parish Tourist and Convention Center to represent the west side of the parish is Miss Sharon Lowe Drucker. So, thank you. All right, I need a motion to...
Mr. Chairman, Parish Council members, Pat Brister, and everyone here, thank you so much for the appointment, and I will do my best to go ahead and promote tourism in our parish. We have so many things to offer to so many different places. I mean, we've got 2 microbreweries, we've got our lakes, we have our wonderful restaurants, we have 9 golf courses here in our parish. I don't know if you knew that, but we do have so much to offer, and I believe that we can definitely take our tourism to another height and hopefully see that our bed and breakfasts, our hotels are going to be maximized to its fullest and hopefully even encourage more building. Thank you so much, and thank you for all that you do. I'm looking at the time here, and Jean has to go to the bathroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rucker. We need a motion
Mr.
to
Falcone.
make the appointment.
Point of clarification, I requested that so Ms. O'Brien could go.
Very gallant, very gallant.
I was trying to be kind, and I'm being mocked.
Could I have a motion to make the appointment? Yeah, Mr. Stefancic, seconded
second.
by Mr. Belisario. Please vote. Please vote, ladies and gentlemen. We're not yet adjourned. Please vote on the
Mr.
appointment.
Dean, Mr. Sharp, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Gould, a verbal from Mr. Canulette. Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.